Hello and welcome to Baiju's Exam Prep IAS. A very, very warm good evening to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good and I welcome you back to today's class of internal security. This is class number 5. We'll wait for a couple of minutes. Let everyone join in the class and then we'll begin. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. 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 Good evening, guys. Hello, Vivek. Good evening. Hello, Priyadashni. Hello, Harshita. Dinesh. Muni. Good evening. Hello, Anjanathan. Hello, Pablo. Anushka. Suomo. Good evening. Hello, Pratibha. Hi, Meshak. Hi, Chandrakant. Ankita. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, Arnav. Good evening. Good evening, Garima. Good evening, Binata. Hi, Shambhavi. Good evening. Good evening, Satyapal. Good evening, Jiva. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Hello, Roshan. Hello, Vasundhara. Hi Anil, hello Uni, hello Aditya. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, everyone. So again, I hope all of you are doing absolutely fine. Again, reminding you, we did not have a session yesterday. There was some of my personal issues because of which we could not have the session yesterday, which I had informed earlier. In its place, as you all know, we are going to have a session on Saturday. So you have to join us Saturday again the same time as the class goes on. Uh, Day before yesterday, when we had our last class, we were discussing about internal security. We have started our discussion mainly about the northeast part of the country. Just a quick reminder of what we had studied, and then we will continue very quickly from there itself. We have started a discussion about the northeast part of India, specifically about the different types of issues that the northeast part of India faces, the insurgencies that happen in multiple states in the northeast. We discuss how the northeast comprises of these seven sisters. These are called the seven sisters, and then Sikkim. We discuss about the factors that had led to insurgency in the northeast part of the country. We discuss how historical factors, the British being here, their handling of northeast part of India, their policy of keeping it separate from the mainland, their policy of keeping it closed door, then historical cultural connections with some of the other countries in the neighborhood, more specifically Myanmar. All of these have led to issues of insurgency. There have been multiple insurgency attacks, insurgency movements in many, many states of the Northeast that we will be discussing one by one. We also discussed how critical is the area for India for its own internal security. The entire Northeast is connected to the mainland through a very narrow corridor, this one called the Siliguri Corridor, 21, 22 kilometers wide. This is again very, very close to China geographically. So Indian government has been trying very hard to establish an alternate route of connectivity towards the northeastern states. That is why we are trying continuously to improve our relationship with countries such as Bangladesh, Myanmar, to make sure that the connectivity towards these northeastern states through some other country is improved and we are at least able to get to them even when this Siliguri corridor, the chicken's neck, is in some kind of a trouble. We discuss about the different types of issues in general, the generic issues that exist in most of these states. We also discuss about the role of the British when they started their missionary movement. They started converting people into Christianity. The British, in fact, also made sure that even after our independence, they have kind of a control in the northeastern part of the country. Also, we have seen that the northeastern part, most of the tribes have been a part of the British Army. Multiple people amongst the northeast part of the country have fought World War One, World War Two, so they are used to fighting. They are used to taking part in these attacks, so they know how to fight, and that is why their attack against the Indian Armed Forces is not really a very small thing. It is a significant attack whenever it happens. There have been multiple such movements, starting with Nagaland in 1950s that we'll discuss today. Then Mizoram, Manipur, Tripura, Assam, all these states have had a very, very deadly and a very important history of insurgency and violence, which we'll be discussing state by state. All in all, the one state that might not have had a lot of insurgency is Arunachal Pradesh, although it has the other kind of trouble. Arunachal Pradesh shares a long border with China, as you know, so there's trouble at that end. China, time and time again, has tried to assert that Arunachal Pradesh is their territory. However, India obviously does not agree to that. And all these are issues that we have to now deal with. These are the general factors, as we had discussed. There is a general sense of apathy, means lack of sympathy from the other parts of the country towards the people living in the northeast part of the country. Also, there have been multiple attacks of violence, for example, in cities such as Delhi, etc. So much so that Delhi had to start a separate police helpline number just for the people from the northeast who are living in Delhi, studying in Delhi University, or working in Delhi. We also discuss about the relationship between Assam and the other states in Northeast. Most of the states in Northeast have been carved out from Assam. Because of this, there is a sense amongst these states that Assam tries to influence them. Assam tries to enforce its identity over these states, and that also becomes a problem time and time again. Most of the states in the Northeast, even today, share some border dispute with Assam or the other. There have been issues of cross-border illegal migration from countries such as Myanmar, such as Bangladesh, that has added to the issue. There has also been drug-related problems, as we discussed a few days back. Northeast part of the country is very close to this area called the Golden Triangle. Now, the Golden Triangle area consists of countries such as Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. These are the countries where a lot of drug like opium, heroin is grown and it is illegally smuggled into the country. This is where we had left the last time. The day before yesterday, when we had a discussion, this was the last slide where we had left. Now, a couple of things quickly. From the kind of questions I see in the chat, I have a sense at times that maybe some of you, or many of you rather, have not seen the earlier classes. So, in case you have not seen the earlier classes, in case you skipped the class for whatever reason, let's say you skipped the class because you were not well, the entire class, or you skipped a part of the class, whatever be the case, please make sure you do see the recorded version of it. Because what happens is a lot of things that have been discussed earlier in great details. For example, someone asking me what is the meaning of insurgency. So we had a big discussion about insurgency, how insurgency is a violent movement to try and capture a territory. So again, and this is true for every subject, not just this subject. Whenever you miss some classes, you will miss it not just for that class, but the topics that will follow will also be missed because, again, at the end of the day, most of the topics are connected. So, if you have missed any class, please make sure that you also see that one, the recorded version, whenever you get the time towards the weekends. On that note, let's begin and let's see what do we have to study today. So, as I said earlier, We will be going state by state. We will be discussing the issues in different states, the insurgency issues in the northeastern state, their history, their present, what has the government been doing about it. I've told this earlier, I'll repeat this once again. Most of the question in internal security will not really be asking you about the whole history of any instance. They will not be asking about the history of insurgency in any state. It is for your own understanding to understand how the state or how the situation has evolved. More important for you is to try and understand the government's efforts to control this problem, government efforts to curtail this problem. That is much, much more important. So while we will be studying this state by state, as I said earlier, we'll be going ahead with Nagaland, with Assam, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura. We'll be studying all of these state by state rather than focusing on entire history of it. Although we will be discussing history, the more important part would be the present and what is the government doing about it. Now there are multiple groups that we see in the northeast part of the country that have had their presence. Now if you actually see, these groups in different parts have been fighting for different things, but mostly whatever government or whenever the government faces any kind of issue, remember the government's approach has usually been the same. The government's approach towards northeastern groups or insurgent groups has always been this. I'll tell you some of the approaches that the government usually tries to implement. First, the government tries to have negotiation. That has always been the first step. Second, the government tries to convince the leaders to join politics. The government always does this as a second step. Let their leaders become mainstream leaders, become MLAs, become MPs, become the chief minister. They have so much support from the people as they claim. Because the reason why these groups are fighting, they claim that everyone supports us, crores of people support us. The government's argument is if they support you, then great, you will easily win the election, come to power, and then you do whatever you want, we'll not stop you. If that doesn't happen, then the government also tries to, at the last step, give them some autonomy. Now, when it talks about autonomy, first thing the government tries to give them is basically autonomy within the state. Autonomy within the state. So when they're asking we have to go and we have to separate from the state, the government tells them, no, you stay within the state and we will give you some autonomy. I'll give you some examples of this. Bodo land is an example of this, and we'll discuss what happened in Bodo land. The last option, the last option that the government usually uses is to make a separate state. Separate state is usually the last option because the government also knows that in case the government accepts the demand for a separate state very early, then they will have a lot of demands coming in. Time and time again, they will have demands, and the government will then have to see if they can if they can accept these demands or not. And that is why the government of India usually does these things. Now, there is one other very interesting thing that happens in India, and again, this is not something that happens with other kind of things in other countries. Usually what happens whenever a government changes, there's a drastic change in the different type of policies that the government usually applies. For example, let's say in the US, when the president changes, when Donald Trump comes to power, you will see a very drastic change in how his policies are as compared to Joe Biden. In India, the good part in on a lot of very important issues, there is usually continuity on a lot of very important issues, where even when the government changes, you do not see a lot of drastic change. For example, if this is an approach that the governments have used, irrespective of whichever party is in power, they usually use the same approach. It is not that if a new party comes to power, they will have a new approach altogether. That is not what happens. They usually have the same approach no matter what. So, again, it really depends upon what kind of issue you are dealing with. Mainly, there are, although there are a lot of groups that we'll be discussing, there are mainly four big insurgent groups in the northeast part of the country that are old, that have been working for a very, very long time. We'll be discussing all of these in detail today or maybe tomorrow. NSCN from Nagaland, Ulfa, Assam, UNLF and PLA, both of these are from Manipur. So both of these are mainly from Manipur. We'll be discussing these in detail with the full form, etc. So don't really worry about that. Most of these are the groups that have the biggest support base, that have the broadest history as well. They have been working for multiple decades. They have even been broken up to different groups as well. This is also one big problem that the government of India faces, and we'll discuss this today. Whenever the government of India tries to negotiate a peace deal with a group, usually what happens? Half of the members of the group agree that okay, we'll have a peace deal, other half does not agree. So whenever the government has this problem that half of the group agrees to the peace deal, other half does not, the group usually gets broken into two parts. One part signs the deal, but the problem does not end because the other part continues to fight. Because no peace deal can make everyone happy. In every single peace deal, in every single agreement, there are always some issues that you would not really be happy about. And we'll be discussing those one by one, starting with Nagaland. Now, if you look at all the states in the Northeast and the insurgency movements that they have seen, probably the deadliest one, the one that has caused the most damage and the most headache to the government, is the Naga issue. Why exactly is the Naga issue so important and why is it so difficult to resolve? There are multiple reasons involved here. First, if you look at Nagaland, their argument for most part is that they don't have anything common with India. The Naga tribes, they keep on saying they don't have anything common with India. Now, the one thing that you have to understand, the movement or this demand for Naga independence is not a demand that started after India's independence. It's a very old demand. In fact, even when the British were here, the Nagas had started demanding that we should be separated, either separate country or a part of Myanmar, maybe, because they say that they do not have anything in common with the Indian culture, with the Indian way of life, how Indians live, their religion, etc. The demand for Naga movement started as back as in 1918. 1918, the year that World War One ended. In both the world wars, Indians participated in large numbers. Although India as a country was not participating, but the fact is that the British employed a lot of soldiers from India, especially the warrior soldiers. So a lot of soldiers from the northeast part of the country were employed. A lot of soldiers from Punjab region were employed. A lot of Gorkha soldiers were employed by the British because they thought that they would be a good addition to their army. Now, after the World War One ended, the Naga soldiers who had fought for the British, they thought since the British have won and they have contributed to the victory of the British, they now had the confidence of demanding something from the British. They thought that in exchange for our help, in exchange for our contribution in the World War One, maybe the British will listen to us. This led to the formation of very first Naga group called the Naga Club. Now, Naga Club again, group of soldiers, a few other people who were close to the British. They thought that if they demand with the British, give them arguments, tell them that they don't want to be a part of India, tell them that they don't have anything common in India, it would be easier for them to convince the British to move away. Now, in 1929, this group, the Naga Club, in fact, even met the Simon Commission. Remember, in modern history, all of you would have read about the Simon Commission. The Simon Commission that came to India, the Simon Commission that was here to actually look into how the constitutional progress should be made. The Simon Commission saw great protest from Indian leaders because there was no Indian member. There was a Lathi charge, and then Lajpat Rai died a few weeks later on. So the Naga club leaders, in fact, even met the Simon Commission as well. So again, it again proves that their demand for independence is not new. it must not be seen like when India became independent, they also started demanding independence. It was much earlier. Also, they realized the fact that British are not accepting their demand. So they thought maybe when the British leave, they will announce their independence themselves. In 1946, the club had new members. By this time, the World War II had also ended. In the World War II, members of this club had been given training in guerrilla warfare by the British. So these Naga tribals were confident enough that they will be able to fight against Indian security forces. They thought that now we have been trained enough. Indian security forces would be no match. We know guerrilla warfare. We know ours is a forested area. We would be able to hold them. They would not be able to win against us. And this is when they thought that they would now ask for independence. Now, before 15th of August, something other also came up. It is called the Naga Akbar Hayadri Agreement. Naga Akbar Hayadri Agreement. Akbar Hayadri was actually the governor of Assam at that point of time. Now, why Assam? Because again, understand, Nagaland was only formed in 1963. Before 1963, there's nothing called Nagaland. It's a part of Assam only. So in 1963, an agreement is signed called the Naga Akbar Hayadri Agreement. Now, this agreement again, and NNC is what? Naga National Council. Naga Club was renamed as Naga National Council. There was this agreement signed between the governor and the Naga National Council, and the agreement basically was there was not more than 9 points. It was just a 9 point agreement. And the points were simple that we will give you autonomy. Autonomy, for example, you can have your own laws. The government of India, Parliament will not impose their laws. You have the right to have your own personal laws. You have the right to keep a weapon also, because in the Naga tribal rituals, keeping weapons is a very, very important part of their culture. So they demanded they need weapons also. So government agreed, okay, we'll give you licenses for weapons as well. So, and the government said, okay, we'll not interfere. Outsiders will not be able to buy land. A lot of these things were done. It became a 9 point agreement. Government thought that is the end of it, but the Nagas rejected it. They said that no, we do not want it. We want complete independence. And that is why just one day before India's independence, that is Pakistan's Independence Day, 14th of August 1947, the NNC, that is the Naga National Council, declared independence. Now, I had said this earlier and repeat this once again. It is extremely unfortunate that our books, school books, NCRT books, focus on very few topics. There is a very wide variety of Indian history that has just been out of focus. I'll give you a few examples. Have you realized how the NCRT books never even mention Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Atal Bihari, Lal Bahadur Shastri? They only mention them when it comes to Constituent Assembly, as if Dr. Rajendra Prasad was born when the Constituent Assembly started to work, as if Lal Bahadur Shastri was born after India's independence. These people had a great role in India's freedom struggle also. They were an integral part of India's freedom struggle, but there's just no focus on them and the contribution that they had in India's independence in most of our school books, NCRT, etc. Also, the other part is, if you actually see our school books, they will tell you that after India's independence, the biggest headache for the government, the biggest threat for the government was the Kashmir issue, which is not false per se. But in reality, there were two big issues that the government was facing. While Kashmir was one, the other part was Nagaland. And most of the experts agree that the Naga issue was even more complex. The reason being, while Kashmir was a region where we had an external threat, across the border there was Pakistan, that was a threat. But what happened in Nagaland was there was an internal threat. And as we discussed earlier, internal threat is always more difficult to deal with because at the end of the day, the government is dealing with its own people. Please understand, for a government, for a security force, to attack someone who is outside India is easier. But to attack someone who is within your country, who's a citizen of your own country, is not that easy. It has a lot of issues involved. You don't know who is innocent, who is not innocent. And the Nagas, because they were trained in guerrilla warfare, because they were trained in all these war tactics, it has been said by many, many people, by military experts also, that as an army personnel, the worst thing that can happen to you is if you get caught in between a Naga attack. A Naga attack was the most deadliest form of attack that armed forces also had to be prepared for. And this is why the problem of Naga insurgency deserves much, much more mention. Hundreds of people died in Naga insurgency amongst the armed forces also and from the Naga side also, all through 1950s, because there was no solution found there. There was no solution found because the Nagas started demanding that we want to have a separate country of our own. On the other hand, the Indian government said we can't give you a separate country of your own. This also led to new kind of laws which people did not really appreciate. For example, the AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Later on in the classes, we will discuss in detail about the AFSPA law. But I'm sure AFSPA is a law that all of you would have read about multiple times, would have seen in the news, would have seen what the AFSPA law is. I'll give you a very simple example of what exactly this is. So, AFSPA, the interesting part is, like most of the draconian laws in India today, AFSPA is also originally a British era law. Indian version was passed in 1958, but the AFSPA law actually was a British era law. It was actually British era law, and it goes back to the idea of Quit India movement. So at the time that India had Quit India movement, the British introduced this law through ordinances, and later on, it was passed in India and India's independence in 1958. Now, a big misconception that people have today, many people think that AFSPA was actually passed mainly because of Jammu and Kashmir. For those who don't know, AFSPA in simple terms is a law that gives a lot of power to the armed forces, almost unlimited powers to the armed forces. All that the government has to do is government will say this area is a disturbed area. Once they call an area a disturbed area, the armed forces will have a lot of power, arrest anyone, shoot people if they think there's a danger. They won't have to even explain. Soldiers are given the power to arrest without warrant, search anyone, anywhere. In fact, this law has been criticized as being draconian in many, many, many parts of the country. The most interesting part, which people don't know about AFSPA, is it was not introduced because of Jammu Kashmir. It was used in Jammu Kashmir later, that is true. But when the law was originally passed, the original name was Armed Forces Special Powers in bracket Assam and Manipur Act. The original name of the law was this Armed Forces Assam and Manipur Act. So please make sure that you do remember this part. It had nothing to do with Jammu Kashmir when it began. The entire idea of why this law was passed was to curtail the problem of Naga insurgency. The idea was to curtail the problem of Naga insurgency. Why? First, I had told you there was nothing called Nagaland. It was only Assam. Nagaland was a part of Assam, so one Assam. Second, why Manipur? Because Manipur was an area where these Nagas used to run away to hide. Whenever we had a situation with the armed forces tried to go ahead, they used to change their state, run away to Manipur, and thought that now we are safe. That is why these two were included. Later on, the law was used in other parts of the country, including Jammu and Kashmir as well. Now, AFSPA was mainly again because the armed forces said we need more powers and we cannot deal with issue just with normal laws. We are under attack by the Naga, it's dangerous and we need different laws. Finally, success was achieved when the government of India brokered a deal, and in 1963, statehood was given to Nagaland. You have read in Indian polity, not just statehood, there is a special status also to Nagaland under Article 371A. Article 371A gives special provisions to Nagaland, right to conserve their own culture, non-interference, issues such as outsiders cannot buy land, so on and so forth. Also, there was a peace mission established in 1960. What was a peace mission? Let's call it a kind of a embassy, like India has embassy in other parts of the country. Similarly, here there was an idea that central government would send a representative in Nagaland called a peace mission, where the government would try and ensure that they take full part in the development of Nagaland and the Naga people would not have any issues. However, the problem of Naga insurgency did not end with 1963. As I told you, the problem that we have with peace talks and peace missions is always that everyone will never be happy. If there are two groups involved, one group proposes something, the other group, all the members will not be happy. Half of them will be happy, they will accept it. Other half will say, no, we want more, we demand more, ye dil mange more, and then they will basically break off. The same happens in the Naga history as well. After 1963, still the Naga insurgency movement did not end. Still, there were issues. The government of India had to make sure that they control the situation, and armed forces were given the power of AFSPA in Nagaland also after the state was formed. Now, there was a new issue that started, that is creation of Bangladesh. What happened was, when there was no Bangladesh, it was East Pakistan, part of Pakistan, they had been given support to the Naga movement. So whenever the Naga leaders needed a place to hide, whenever the Naga army, the Naga insurgent needed any place to hide, they would just run away to East Pakistan and they were given shelter. When East Pakistan was lost and it turned to be Bangladesh, that created even more problem for the Naga leaders because they lost a big area where they could just go and hide. They lost a big friend where they could go and hide. Again, there was pressure from the government of India, and this time, again, a peace agreement was signed called the Shillong Accord of 1975. Now, Shillong Accord of 1975 extremely, extremely important. I don't know how many of you have been to Shillong. If you do get a, if you do get a chance, do visit. Very, very, very beautiful city. Very amazing place. Anyway, so Shillong is in Meghalaya. It's a short road trip from Guwahati. Now, Shillong Agreement basically was a 1965, 1975 agreement. There were mainly 16 points. There were mainly 16 points in this agreement. Now, in this agreement, the idea again was that the government of India basically gave a lot more autonomy to the to the Naga people, Naga soldiers. The government also said any pending case. The government also said any pending case against the Naga leaders and Naga soldiers, we will take all of that away. All those who are participating in the Naga army, we will take away whatever pending case they have. I'll give you some of the pointers. So basically, very interesting point number one was that the the Indian Foreign Ministry was given a kind of responsibility to look after Nagaland. Now, it was very interesting because nothing has ever been done like this. That Indian Foreign Ministry was given the responsibility that you will look into Nagaland, you will look into development of Nagaland. So far, nothing like that has happened in history of India. So no one really knew what exactly what did they mean. But this was the point of the agreement that the Indian Foreign Affairs Ministry will look into Nagaland. Not just this, apart from this, in Indian Parliament, there would be two Naga delegates who will be appointed in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, both of these will have two Naga representatives or Naga delegates. These would be the people who will make sure that the central government does not pass a law against the Nagas or against the customs and the rituals of Nagas. Not just this, uh, even their personal laws would be kept separate. The government of India will not make any laws on their social customs and rituals. These were some of the pointers of the 16-point accord. Now, again, the same thing happened. The same thing that had happened in 1975 accord. In 1975, we had the Akbar Hayadri Accord that failed. This again, when this was passed, when this was signed by the government, this again failed because at this point of time, the Naga movement was divided into two parts. One part of the Naga movement was like, whatever the government is saying, let's accept it. Let us have peace. We can't be fighting forever. We also have our kids to feed. We can't keep fighting forever. We can't win against the government. Then there was the other side who is always like, no, 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 we have to keep fighting. We'll only take 100% of our demands. We take a separate country of our own. This Shillong Accord led to the beginning of another new group in Nagaland that exists even today. This is the NSCN that we were talking about in the beginning. National Socialist Council of Nagaland. The most interesting part is, see, it was not formed in India. See where it was formed. It was formed in Myanmar in 1980. The role of Myanmar here is also very curious in the sense that, see, Myanmar, it is known, it is almost common knowledge in India that Myanmar has a big role to play in a lot of insurgency movements in India. For example, what is happening in Manipur, Myanmar has a role to play there also. In Nagaland also, it's known to everyone that they supported the Naga insurgents. They allowed the Naga insurgents to enter into Myanmar and hide in the forest. So the role of Nagaland here, or role of Myanmar rather, cannot be missed. The problem here from India's point of view is, despite knowing all of this, we cannot have a very stern relationship with Myanmar because we are dependent on Myanmar for a few things. Myanmar is an interesting country. It is India's gateway to Southeast Asia. It's a part of ASEAN. India looks after or looks to have great relationship with ASEAN. Through Myanmar, we are trying to have alternate connectivity to our own northeastern states. We have the Kaladan multimodal project. We are trying to enter Mizoram through Myanmar so that we don't have to go through Siliguri corridor. So, despite knowing the role of Myanmar here, despite knowing that Myanmar has had a role to play in this insurgency, Indian government cannot really openly take up any action or criticize Myanmar, unfortunately, because that is how you usually take decisions. In politics, there's nothing called good or bad. There is bad and worse. So in bad and worse, you choose the bad and you try to make sure that worse does not happen. Since then, this NSCN group has been dividing into multiple parts time and time again. Now, NSCN gets divided time and time again based on different issues. You don't have to remember those issues. Now, whatever the leader is, they give the name to the group. For example, it was divided into two parts, NSCN IM and K. IM is Isaac Muiva, and K is Khaplang. These are the name of the leaders. So the leaders made different groups, Isaac Muiva group and the Khaplang group. Because of differences, see, the main difference why the group usually breaks up into two parts is, one part now wants peace, wants to settle down, wants to accept the government offer. The other part says, no, we will not accept peace. The other part says, we will not accept the government's offer. We want more. We can't just take this much. So the two groups had been formed. Later on, there was one more group that was formed very recently called NSCNK. That is Chloe Kitovi. So there are three groups now: NSC and IM, Isaac Moiva. Second group is NSC and K, that is Khaplang. Sorry, Khaplang. And then now there's NSC and KK also, Chloe Kitovi. All these are leaders that have formed different groups. Out of all of these, the government of India has been able to sign a peace accord with only one. Out of all of these, only one has signed a peace accord with government of India. Anyone who knows who that one is? Yes, I am. Perfect. This is the one that has signed a peace accord with the government of India. The other two have not signed a peace accord. In fact, the other two still continue to carry out attacks. They still continue to attack the armed forces. They still continue to hide in the forest in Myanmar, sometimes even far off in Bhutan, etc. Try to see if they can organize an attack. With IM, we have achieved peace. What exactly are they demanding right now is interesting. They demand something called Nagalim. Nagalim or Greater Nagaland. Now, the most interesting part and kind of funny is the area that they are demanding, that we want Nagalim or Greater Nagaland. It even includes areas from Myanmar. So even they want an area out of Myanmar as well. And even then, the Myanmar people are supporting it. Now, how? This is the map. See, the shaded portion that you see is what they demand. So I'll just try and basically clarify a few things. So this is India Myanmar border. So this is Myanmar. This is India Myanmar border. Now, if you see the shaded portion is what they are demanding. So what Greater Nagaland or Nagalim is demanding, as you can see, not just Nagaland. Their demand is Greater Nagaland would comprise of Nagaland, entire Manipur, part of Assam, part of Arunachal, and more importantly, a big part of Myanmar as well. This is what they are demanding. The idea is simple. They say in whichever area the Naga tribes live, whichever area has Naga tribe living, we want that area to be under one single country. As simple as that. So they say that this is where the Nagas usually live, and all that should come under one single country, and that is what we are demanding. The demand is Greater Nagaland or Nagalim. When they were signing a peace treaty with India, they demanded many things at first. They demanded we want our own constitution, government denied that. They demanded that we would like to have our own prime minister, government denied that. So the government also negotiates very well on these issues. It's not that whatever they are demanding, the government will agree everything. The government also decides and tries to see if we can actually come up with something that both the sides agree to. I'll give you one more interesting fact here. Without Googling, don't Google it. Can you tell me who was this kind of negotiator or peacemaker who negotiated the treaty between the government of India and Myanmar and Nagaland? Ajit Doval is not the answer for everything, man. Not Ajit Doval. Guys, the agreement was signed in 2015. Before you say Patel and Nehru, it was 2015 when the agreement was signed. I'm talking about this peace agreement, that the last one that was signed with NSCN recently. Not Amit Shah. Okay, I don't think you will get it. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. So the hint is that person is right now governor of a state. That person right now is governor of a state. Okay, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is R.N. Ravi, Tamil Nadu's governor. So Tamil Nadu's governor R.N. Ravi, before becoming Tamil Nadu governor, He was actually given this responsibility. Before becoming governor of Tamil Nadu, he was in Nagaland. He was negotiating on behalf of the government of India. It took a long time, and only then, it was in 2015 that the government of India had this peace agreement signed again only with the IM group. As you can see here, 2015 peace accord was signed with INSC and IM. Again, only IM, not the others. Khaplang group and the other KK group, they have still been carrying on attacks. They have still not agreed that we want a peacefire of any kind. Their attacks still continue. They demand that we want more, we want a separate country of our own, we want a separate flag, we want a separate constitution, so on and so forth. But again, this is something that the government of India has not agreed to. Only no, the Shillong Accord was not accepted. The Shillong Accord was not accepted. This is the timeline to for your revision, year by year timeline of what happened, where exactly did it start, and in the end, 2015, how it concluded. Again, the insurgency in Nagaland has not ended. The current status is there is one group, and that group is the IM group, Isaac Moiva group, that has agreed to a ceasefire that has been signed. But on the other hand, the others have not. As you can see here, this is the timeline. This gentleman is Fizo. Fizo was the first big leader of the Naga National Council, NNC. When Naga National Council, when they declared independence, they said that we are independent. Fizo was a leader. He was the one that started demanding that we would like to have our independence. Now, a couple of things here, very importantly. First, a very generic question that you should have: do you have to remember each and everything about this? Not really. I would not say that you have to remember each and everything about this. This is for your own understanding. You would be more, or you should be more interested, and you should be in reading about the present status, the NSC and IM. Read about why are they demanding, or the reasons for the Naga movement, the steps taken by the government of India, the role of Myanmar. That would be good enough, rather than remembering the entire timeline of it. On the other hand, from the prelims examination point of view, these kind of agreements, etc., don't remember their points, but just remember, for example, if in the prelims the UPSC asks you the Akbar Hayadri agreement is related to which state, then you should know Nagaland. So those kind of facts for the prelims become important. For the mains examination point of view, as I said, the entire chronology of the movement, that is not really relevant. That's not that important for you. What is more important is to understand the issue, is to understand what their demand is, understand the present status, and the steps taken by the government as such to ensure that these issues are curtailed. This was about Nagaland. I'll give you a few minutes to ask your questions and doubts which are relevant. I'll decide I'll not read the irrelevant questions anyways. So whatever relevant questions you can ask, then we'll go ahead with Assam now. Any questions? Vivek, no. Yes, Aryan, IAS officer. Cian at present, yes. The Khaplang group and the KK group, they still want a separate country. That is why they have not signed the peace accord. Their demand is still a separate country of their own. Megha is saying because of Naga, the place name is Nagaland. How it the name came? Yes, the tribe's name is Naga, the Naga tribe. Because of that, the Nagaland name came into being. Ankush saying why NSCN got divided the second time. Ankush, see, the reason why the groups are divided are usually number one, when the peace accord is signed, you accept it or you don't accept it. Number two, when there are more than one leaders. When there's another leader who thinks that I will be a better leader, they break away. It's a simple thing. Why do any groups break when there are more than one leaders? Everyone thinks that I will be able to do this better. Then Shweta, there was no Fizo topic. Fizo was the first leader of the Naga National Council. That was the only thing about Fizo. Only Avspa and Pota are different. AFSPA gives powers to the armed forces. POTA is not related to the armed forces. POTA is a law, used to be a law, wherein if you indulge in terrorism, it will give you a very hard punishment. That's a different law altogether. AFSPA is a law that gives power to the armed forces to control a specific area. Premising other two groups are demanding separate treaty who have not signed the peace treaty. Yes, Prem. Only the ISAC Moiva group has signed the peace treaty, the other two have not. Vivek, why Burma supports Naga militants? See, if you look at the other side of the border, it is in Myanmar, there's a lot of common tribal connection. So a lot of family members from Naga tribes live in Myanmar. There's a very significant population. They are the ones who usually are happy to hide these militants. That Myanmar government might not be doing this on its own, but the common people living across the border in Myanmar are happy to hide them because most of them are their family members. Only I wrote the full form earlier. I wrote it. IM is Isaac Moiva. I wrote it earlier. I don't know. You did not see it, I think. Guys, can you stop your question now? I think because it's getting a lot. So let me first complete these and then we'll go forward. Then I have a question. Yes, Ritika, the Naga insurgency is still continuing by the other two NSCNs. Pihu saying, does other states take any action against the demand of Nagas? No, the center government will take care of it. No? Guys, see, guys, please, I see your question on the first instant itself. There's no point copy pasting it. You are just eating up space. I see your question the first instant itself. Please don't copy paste time and time again. I see this. One time is good enough. Okay. Ankush, yeah, kind of the same aim. Khapling and Kole Kitovi, kind of the same aim. Does at different leaders, different ways to achieve it. Arnab, we already discussed about the influence of Myanmar in the Naga movement. Sakshi, see the notes, you can just update the current affairs thing. Otherwise, you can leave it at that. Shweta, the Nagalim demand is still being made by the Khaplang group and by the KK group. Guys, please, you can stop your questions now. Why the questions are just getting repetitive. Whatever has been asked, I'll answer. Anurag is saying, can Nagas be called Naxalites? Not really. Naxalites have a different idea. They are not demanding a separate country of their own as such. Pavitra is saying, is he the first leader in Nagaland? Yes. Uh, then Karthik is how our government started fencing Myanmar border? Yes, government of India started fencing the Myanmar border because we think that a lot of people illegally are coming into states such as Manipur and Nagaland. Then Mr. Bhushan, can you please stop pasting the same comment multiple times? I will come to it when the time is right. You can stop pasting the same comment in different language, please. Uh, then I have a question. Current status of farmer protest. Vaishnavi, it's not related to what we are studying. Secondly, I also see the same news as you see. So, in fact, I don't see that news. So, you would be able to tell me the status of farmer protest better. Once it's a part of internal security, we'll discuss that as well. Dheeraj, the Shillong Peace Accord was not really did not really pass. NSCN-K did not sign the peace accord in 2001. Yes, Gunjan, you are right. Vivek, Aman Ki Asha is a tag name. Just a tag name. You're taking it too deep. Aman Ki Asha is just a tag name that the government gives. Sakshi, the role of Bangladesh is not that much in case of Nagaland. Role of Bangladesh is more in case of other issues such as Assam, as we'll discuss. Okay, so these are the questions that you had. Some deep and some shallow questions. Anyway, so this is what we had for Nagaland. Now we can go ahead with the next state where again there has been a lot of issues of insurgency of different types. That is Assam now. Now, Assam is the biggest state of the northeast part of the country. It's called as a gateway towards the northeast part of the country. Assam, again, I told you earlier also, it's a state from where most of the states of Northeast were carved out. And that is why in Assam also, you see there are a lot of land boundary dispute amongst the different states. However, the problem with Assam is much, much more than what is actually being seen here. Assam's problem is related to illegal insert or illegal migration. Illegal migration with respect to Bangladesh. Illegal migration with respect to Bangladesh. Now, Assam is affected by that because it's more of an external problem. So I hope in international relations you all have read about Bangladesh issue. Anyone who doesn't know how Bangladesh or why Bangladesh was created, I hope all of you know this. Anyone who does not know how Bangladesh was created, I hope all of you know this, right? Perfect, perfect, perfect. Uh, Perfect. Those who don't know, I'll give you a very short version. Those who don't know, I'll give you a very, very short version. The short version is when India got independent, Pakistan got created. In Pakistan, there were actually two sides that were created, East Pakistan and West Pakistan. The Bangladesh that you see today was actually East Pakistan, part of one country, Pakistan only, just called East Pakistan. East Pakistan, the only difference or the main difference was that they had a different language. They spoke Bengali, while the West Pakistan, is today's Pakistan, they spoke their own Urdu language. Now, East Pakistan, they saw a lot of protests happening from 1960s, 1950s as well. The reason was they said that government of Pakistan does not pay attention to them. There were no welfare policies. The people were poor. There was no development in East Pakistan. There was also charges of discrimination on the basis of language. By the 1960s, because of their higher population, East Pakistan people started to become more stronger and strengthen themselves. There was a time that they formed a new party called the Awami League. Awami League's leader, founder Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he won the election, was supposed to be the prime minister, but West Pakistan, the prime minister and the presidents disagreed. They said no. How can be our prime minister from East Pakistan? We cannot allow this. They jailed him even though he won the election. Again, nothing new in Pakistan. So this is when Pakistan Army launched an operation called Operation Searchlight. There was an operation called Operation Searchlight. Operation Searchlight was an operation of the Pakistan Army under which they killed lakhs of people in East Pakistan. Basically, the military killed their own citizens. Lakhs of people were killed because, again, when your own military is killing you, where will you go and ask for help? You usually ask for help from the police, but when your own police, own military is killing you, what can you do? You can do nothing. So, what happened was people started running into India. They started crossing over borders. At one point of time, it is said by 1970 that 1 crore people had illegally come to India from East Pakistan. 1 crore people. They just had to save their life. They had no other option. So they just ran and ran and ran. Now, this is where we have to understand India's position also. India was a poor country, very poor country in 1970, did not even have our own food, did not have food to feed our own people. So at that point of time, when you have crore people coming in, giving them food, giving them a place to live, it became a big problem for the government of India. The government of India talked to Pakistan. They obviously did not agree to anything. We talked to Western countries. Indira Gandhi, in fact, it is said that went to US as well. By the way, I'll tell you a very very small story here. Not a story, but at the time when Indira Gandhi was the president here, America had a president called Richard Nixon. America had a president called Richard Nixon. Now, Richard Nixon is said to be the most anti-India president that America has ever had. He was openly critical of India. He spoke very badly about India. And it is said, and it is true, it is said that when Indira Gandhi had gone to the US to meet him, they organized a dinner for her and everything, just like they do with every diplomatic guest. And apparently, after dinner, there was a dance. So Richard Nixon had asked Indira Gandhi for a dance, that can I dance with you? And Indira Gandhi said, no, I will not dance with you. I'm not saying that this is what pissed him, but again, this is a fact of history that she denied that no, I will not dance with you. But Richard Nixon was against India or anti India even before that as well. Now, Richard Nixon, when Indian Prime Minister met him, we asked him to interfere. America was much closer to Pakistan than it was to India, but Richard Nixon denied. He said that I will not interfere, it's an internal matter. We went to other big countries as well, UK also, but no one basically asked or no one helped us. At that point of time, we had no other option. We had to take care of the problem ourselves. So what did we do? We signed a treaty with USSR, the USSR India Treaty of Friendship. In that Treaty of Friendship of 1971, there was an article called Article number 9. That article of the treaty was that the two sides will come to help each other in case of external threat. So it was a guarantee for India that if India goes on a war with Pakistan and if we need some help, USSR will come for our help. That is the only time India has ever signed such a treaty with any country where we have a treaty where the two sides agree we will come each other in case of external attack. So India then went on a war with Pakistan. 1971 war happened, and in 1971 war, as expected, America came for Pakistan's help, but thankfully it was USSR that also came for our help, and that is why we, at the end of the day, were able to win that war. The result was that Bangladesh became a separate country. Pakistan lost a big part of its country, more than half part of its country was lost, and that is again the 1971 war. Now, the issue here is when India fought that war, when the 1970 war happened, the single biggest aim for the government of India doesn't matter what Pakistan says, but Pakistan says no, it was a planned thing from India. Pakistan denies that there was something called Operation Searchlight. Pakistan says that India was the one that killed people in East Pakistan. India was the one that planned everything. Basically, they give us credit for too much intelligence. It's not that we planned these many things, but anyways. So Pakistan said, no, no, India is behind this. They planned this anyway. So Indian government has always accepted that our entire idea of fighting a war with Pakistan was to ensure that this refugee crisis stops. The interesting part is after 1971, when Bangladesh got created, there was an assumption from our side. We thought that now there will not be any illegal migrants. But it did not stop. Even after Bangladesh got created, there was still illegal migration. There was still illegal migration. Now, when this illegal migration did not stop, it became a big problem because again, India did not have the resources to support so many more people. This is where, in states such as Assam, Tripura, West Bengal, it became a big problem. So much so that there was a change in demographic profile. Change in demographic profile basically means, for example, take the case of Tripura. Tripura, for the longest time, was always a tribal majority state, where majority of the people used to be tribal, simple. However, it was in 1980s that there was so much illegal migration coming in. Tripura became a state where where tribals became a minority. So there was this big change in demographic. In Assam, also the same thing happened. A lot of illegal immigration came in. Now, the problem here is if you look at India, and it has become better over the past 2 or 3 decades, but in India, especially 1970s, 1980s, if you were able to find the right person and if you were able to give some money, There was no document that was impossible for you to be made. If you can find the right person, give him the money, he will make every document for you. There are people who can make EWS certificate for Mukesh Ambani also. Does if Mukesh Ambani has the money to pay it, he will make the EWS certificate. Then Mukesh Ambani, very poor person, very poor person. So again, that is the problem that we had. That the people who came in illegally, they got a lot of documents made. It's very difficult to prove if you are illegal here or not. Because see, the Indian subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, if you stand people from these countries in a group, if they don't open their mouth, you can't tell them from which country are they, right? If you actually just have people from India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, ask them not to open up their mouth, you will not be able to tell if they are from India or not, because you can't just identify them. And that's why it's extremely problematic to find out who are the outsiders. Anyways, now in Assam, the problem started in the end of 1970s. In the end of 1970s, Assam started something called the Assam agitation. Now, what was the Assam agitation? The simple idea was that there was a by-election that was held in 1970s. There was a small election that was held in Lok Sabha constituency. It was found out by the local people that as compared to the last election, all of a sudden the population of that district, the voters in that district had increased drastically. All of a sudden, they were double the number of voters as compared to the last election. Everyone was surprised. How are there so many people voting in the election when earlier there was just half of it? And this is what started the problem. There were 45,000 illegal migrants' names that were found on the voter list. People who no one recognized, no one knew who this person was. This started the movement. Now, this movement was led by the student union leaders in Assam colleges, Assam University Student Union. They were the ones who started this movement. It became a very violent movement. So much so that everyone was told in Assam not to take part in the election. They boycotted the election. Anyone who went to vote or anyone who stood in the election was killed. There were people whose dead bodies were just found on the road because they were fighting elections. So it became a very violent movement. In the end, 1985, we had something called the Assam Accord. We had something called the Assam Accord. Assam Accord was an agreement between the Assam government, the government of India, and the student union leaders, the Assam Gan Parishad. The agreement was simple. The big point of the agreement, the big point of the agreement was anyone who entered Assam after 25 March 1971. This was a cutoff date. After this, anyone who entered Assam will be called an illegal immigrant, and government of India takes the responsibility of sending them back. The government of India promises that anyone who entered the state after this date, we will send them back. But it has not been done so far, because when you say send them back, back where? Bangladesh never says there are people. So when you say I'll send them back, but send them back where exactly? No one answers this. I'll send you back, but back where, Baba? No one accepts them. So where are you sending them back? Number one, how will you identify them? And that became a big issue. And even today, the issue continues with the NRC, Citizenship Amendment Act, all of these combined into one. Anyway, so we leave that part because that is now going into polity territory. So we are now leaving that part. Let's come back to internal security territory. So in this movement that was going on, the Assam agitation that was going on against the outsiders, this led to the formation of a group in Assam called United Liberation Front of Assam, that is Alpha, ULFA. Now, if you actually see the ULFA, this is one of the oldest insurgent and violent groups in the northeast part of the country. This is one of those groups that has a long history of attacking the government. The good part is just last month, Jan 2024, there was a peace accord signed by the government with ULFA. Jan 2024, just last month, there was a peace accord that was signed. It was a peace accord with three parties: central government, Assam government, and ULFA leaders. So a peace accord has now been signed with this. They anyways had declined, or their activities had declined considerably. They existed on paper, but most of the activities had declined considerably. They did not have a lot of threat anyways, but it's good that the government of India has signed a peace accord. Now, under the peace accord, what has happened? Basically, the government of India has agreed, or they have agreed rather, to surrender their weapons. They will not be taking weapons anymore. They will join the democratic process, as the government says, join elections. The government also has promised that we will give more money to the government of Assam for their development. Now, this usually is always a part of most of the agreements. Like when the Assam Accord was signed, here also government agreed we'll give more money to Assam in the budget for their agreement. Here also, in the Assam Alpha Peace Accord also, the government says we'll give more money to Assam, etc. So again, these are the promises that have been made right now. The interesting part is Ulfa had a lot of power till 2009-10. Now, what happened here? If you look at the history of Ulfa, what exactly happened? So, usually these groups, they come up because of some violent protest, and they gather a lot more support when there are a lot of violent movements that start to happen. I'll give you an example. So there was an instance in 1980s. The instance was apparently, again, the case is that there was a girl, an Assamese girl, who was raped by Bengalis. So the story is that in a train, it was in a train ride, and inside a train, an Assamese girl was raped by Bengalis. Now, what happened in this case was that the allegation was that this is an illegal migrant who had come in, or these people were illegal migrants who had come in. Now, when this news started to spread, Ulfa said that we will take revenge. And then, as happens, even if some people or a few people are responsible for an act, the entire community has to pay the price. So there were violent attacks on the entire Bengali community. Doesn't matter if they were Indians or they had come from outside. And this became the stronghold of Ulfa. Many people started joining Ulfa. One interesting part was that they were hiding, or they used to hide in Bangladesh. Whenever they used to have an attack, or whenever they used to carry on an attack on the Indian armed forces, whenever the armed forces responded, they will go and hide in Bangladesh. Now tell me this: Bangladesh was created with India's help, right? Why would Bangladesh then help those groups who are fighting against India? Don't you think that's rather odd? We were the ones who created Bangladesh. Bangladesh should be thanking us. And then what they do is they start giving support to groups that are fighting against us. Don't you think that's odd? Or something wrong happened in between? What do you think? Krishika, anti-national government, anti who? Their anti-national will be anti-Bangladesh or anti-India? Anti-national government means what? Anti-Bangladesh or anti-India? What do you think? What happened here? What exactly happened in India? Almost a creator of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is now turning its back, and now they are coming against us only. Pavitra is saying they don't like India's development. Pavitra, dear, sorry, but India was not really developing at that time. If we would have been developing, then you could have said they don't like our development. But India was not developing. So when India was not developing, what development would they be jealous of? Illegal immigrant. Okay, I'll tell you the story. Now, please understand this. Please understand this story here. This is so what I'm telling you now is more from international relations rather than internal security. Please understand this. You can stop writing now. All of you are writing something wrong. So you can stop writing now. So basically what I'm going to tell you in the next 5-7 minutes is more from international relations, India-Bangladesh relations, and rather less from here. But it's important for you to understand. So what happens here? 1971, Bangladesh is created, right? Now, when Bangladesh is created, their Prime Minister Sheikh Mujibur Rahman is released from the jail. He gives a speech. He says that thank you, India, thank you, Indira Gandhi, because of you, our country got created. Everything is fine, everything is hunky dory. The problem then starts. The problem is it's easy to demand we want a new country. Everyone can demand it. The problem is how will you run your country? It's not that easy. Anyone can demand I want a new country, but how will you run a country? For running a country, you need money, you need support, you need other countries to recognize you, you need to have good trade, you need to have something you can sell to the world to earn money so that you can buy other stuff. They did not really think about that. The other problem is, see, when partition happens peacefully, when there's a peaceful partition or there's a partition according to a treaty, then the countries divide their resources. They say, okay, I'll give you this much money. For example, when India partition or India got partitioned, Pakistan was created. Pakistan was given some money by India. The money that Reserve Bank of India had at as its earning, a part of it was given to Pakistan that see you are now going away. Officially, peacefully, so now this is your money, this is our money, we will start. It because it was a peaceful transfer of power. In case of Bangladesh, it was not a peaceful transfer of power. When you forcefully become a new country, the old country will not give you anything. So you start from zero. You start from zero. You're a poor country, you start from zero. So the first few years of Bangladesh were very, very tough. The first few years of Bangladesh, 1971 to at least 75, very, very, very tough. Did not have any money, very poor country as such. Many countries did not even recognize. Why? Remember, I told you when Pakistan was fighting this war, America had come to their help. Remember, I told you America had come to their help. It was because USSR had come for our help. That is why the problem did not really occur because we were supported by USSR. But America did come for their help. So America was very close to Pakistan then. America and many Western countries did not recognize Bangladesh for many years. They said, "Though no, this is illegal. It's a part of Pakistan only." So they recognized it much, much later on. Anyways, first few years very difficult for Bangladesh. Poor country, very poor country. There was a feeling that started in Bangladesh. The feeling was India is trying to keep Bangladesh poor because Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was very close to the Indian government, very close to Indira Gandhi. The feeling was that India maybe is trying to control Bangladesh. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman is listening too much to Indira Gandhi. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman is not listening to Bangladesh, he is listening just to India, and thus something needs to be done. And what happened? Something big happened. 15th August 1975, Bangladesh Prime Minister and the entire family of the Prime Minister was assassinated by their own army. Assassinated by their own army. The army thought that they are just not taking anything or they are not uh, forcing the country forward. The army thought that they would have to take matters in their own hand. They killed the entire family of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. His family, the brother's family, so army basically at the top level made the plan. Three teams were formed so that at the same time they kill everyone. One team went to his house, prime minister's house, one team went to his brother's house, then to his sister's house, etc. Almost the entire family was wiped out just in a few minutes. Only two daughters were saved. One daughter who is the prime minister of Bangladesh right now. The current prime minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, is a daughter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. How was she saved? Because she was not in Bangladesh. She was in Germany. She was studying with her sister. That is why she was saved. They came back. When they came back, they came to India. They stayed in India for some time and then they went to Bangladesh. So now what I'm trying to tell you, from 1975, from 1975 till at least the year 2000, India Bangladesh relation was not great. India Bangladesh relations had declined considerably. In fact, so much so that, do you know, Bangladesh had even gone to UN against India. Bangladesh wanted to sign the Ganga Water Treaty with India. They said that India is not giving them enough water from the Ganga River, and they went to UN, complained against us that, see, they're not giving us enough water. So this was an era where Bangladesh India relations were very bad, because India thought that the army has taken over. They are the ones who are running the country. They killed the entire family of the prime minister. We would not want a relationship with them. So now this is the era where Bangladesh supports these groups, the Ulfa group and their leaders who want to go and hide in Bangladesh. This is why the Bangladesh government has held them in the past. So now you understand why, despite India being the country behind formation of Bangladesh, has been facing such discrimination. How is it that it is Bangladesh that is helping these, or was helping these troops? Now, Ulfa thankfully had not, or had stopped getting support, mainly after Sheikh Hasina came to power. Now, again, if you look at Bangladesh or politics of Bangladesh, what usually happens in case of Bangladesh is, like India, Bangladesh also has multiple parties, but there are two main parties in Bangladesh. One is the Awami League, and other is the BNP. BNP is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. These are the two main parties in Bangladesh, and then there are some small parties here and there that come in. The history is, whenever Awami League is in power, they are pro India. They help the government of India. The government of India also has a good relationship with them. Sheikh Hasina comes to power. BNP is usually seen as anti India. Their leader is Zia Khalida. Zia Khalida, who is put under house arrest by Sheikh Hasina. So, whenever the Awami League is in power, they usually take steps to control insurgency. The Ulfa group, etc., have been controlled. So, right now, the present status, at least, is the Ulfa group is under control. The peace treaty has already been signed. So, they are not really a threat anymore as such. And, anyways, they had declined considerably. Starting with 2011, the government of India had controlled them, because from 2011 onwards, there were multiple agreements that were signed with them. 2011, there was an agreement for suspension of operations. There was an agreement by Ulfa, again, Indian government and the state government. After that, there were some other issues that started in Assam. So Assam has had multiple issues. Charulata, dear, the full form is written right here. Beta. It's written right here. So again, Assam has had multiple issues. Ulfa is one part of the story. The problem that Ulfa had was mainly that they were fighting against illegal migrants, mainly from Bengal, or rather, mainly from Bangladesh. Then there is one more part where problem exists in Assam. That is the demand by Bodo groups. Just like the Naga groups have been demanding their country, Naga groups have been demanding their state, and they got Nagaland. We also have the Bodo area, where the Bodo tribals have also been demanding that they want a separate state or a separate country at times of their own. Bodos again are a tribal group in Assam. If you look at the map of Assam towards the north, basically towards the north side of Assam, I'll just try and give you a, just give me a moment. So if this is Assam, this is the area mainly where you have Bodo population. This area. To this area mainly. So the Bodos have been demanding for a long time that we want our own state, and at times they have also said we want our own country. Now, The Bodo issue has been a big issue in history of Assam, and it has been going on for a long time. The government of India, in fact, has signed multiple Bodo peace accords. The Bodos also demand that in our area there should be no outsider. They demand that no Bengali speaking person should live here. They demand that we want to have a separate country of our own, if not a country, at least a separate state of our own. And the current status is there have been three Bodo accords that have been signed by the government, again by multiple groups, because the groups keep on breaking. So there are three groups, three different peace accords have been signed so far. But even now, I would say the problem is more or less solved. Right now, there is no big group that has said that we will not accept it. The third peace accord has almost ended the Bodo insurgency also. And now we'll see what exactly is this. So, in the Bodo area, the Bodo tribal groups have been fighting against the Bengali speaking population, mostly Muslims. Bodos are mostly Christians, by the way. So, there is a religious angle involved here as well. This Christian angle that the Bodos have, they usually fight against the Bengali speaking Muslim population. So, again, there's a history attached to that. We'll discuss that also as well in just a bit. In Assam, there are different tribal groups, the biggest one being the Bodo. There are also Karbis, Dimasas, and the Kuch Rajbangshis. But again, out of all of these, although all of them demand different at different time, we want a separate state, we want a separate state. But in reality, the one group that is the biggest, that is the most important, where the government also focus is the Bodos. Bodos are the ones that are important. Others are small little groups, not that significant, not that important. The Bodos, however, started demanding state long time back. Why? They got this idea from Nagaland. So their idea was if Nagas can do it, why can't we? That is always a problem in front of the government. Whenever there is a demand to form a new state, to form a new country, to form something new, and if the government accepts it, the problem is in a diverse country such as India, government knows if we accept one demand, there will obviously not be any end to it, and there will be so many other demands that will keep on coming up. Similar is the case here as well. When the government accepted the demand of Nagas, government knew that there will be some other demand, and that is how the Bodos also learned that we can also demand the same. So now let's look at what exactly has the government done and what is the issue with the Bodoland area right now. In Indian polity, you all have read about the sixth schedule of the constitution. In the sixth schedule, you all would know there are four states that are mentioned: Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. Now, what happens in these six scheduled states? I hope all of you know. In these six scheduled states, since there is a lot of tribal population, they have their own rituals, customs, traditions. They have been given a kind of a local government, that you can have your own local government in your own district, make your own laws, make your own policies, and we will not interfere. For example, if you look at Assam, if this is Assam, let's say this is where the Bodos live, this is where, let's say, the Karbi tribe lives, this is where the Dima Hasao they live. So government told them that all of you can have your own kind of a local government called the autonomous councils. So for Bodoland, they have a Bodoland Territorial Council. Karbi have the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council, and there's a Dima Hasao Autonomous Council as well. Again, these councils have been created under the sixth schedule of the Constitution of India, and they have been given slight powers. Now, please tell me very quickly, how many members do we have in these councils? How many members do we have? This is something you would have read in Indian polity. Yes, Rohit. Thank you so much. 30 members usually, except this. This does not have 30. Except this one does not have 30. Now we'll discuss that in just a bit. Their powers have been increased. They have been demanding much more than just 30 members, so the government has looked into that. Shweta, the Kuch Rajbangshis are not a very large group. So the government has for now at least ignored their demands. So at least for now, the Kuch Rajbangshis, they don't have a territorial council of their own as such. Now, in these states, I hope you also know, there is no panchayat. There is no panchayat in these states. In the fifth schedule areas, they have a panchayat law called PISA, Panchayat Extension to Schedule Areas Act. But in the sixth schedule state, there is no panchayat. So there is no provision of villages, etc. There is no provision of panchayats coming in. They just have the regional council or the district council, which can make their own rules, which have the power to make laws on certain subjects. Their laws are made in a similar manner as the state government. That is, they make their laws, send it to the governor. The governor has to sign the bill, and that is how the law is created. So, the creation of the laws in these six schedule areas is very similar to how the state legislature works. State legislature manner. So, they also pass the bill, they also send to the governor can then sign on it, and that is how these are created. Now, the problem again is that there is no village that has a panchayat in the six schedule areas. So now the problem started in the villages. The villagers have been demanding that we don't have enough funds. They have been demanding that in the sixth schedule, while the government has created some agencies, but in the sixth schedule, the government says that we have not been given as much funds as we would want. The villagers say that we don't have enough money, only the district councils have money, and you have to give more money to us as well. This is how the demand in Bodoland also has started. That again, Bodoland Territorial Council is only for the urban area. So the villages nearby, they were demanding that we do not have enough funds, we don't have enough power, we also want more power. We'll come to how this problem was solved, how the villagers were given this problem, were given the solution for this problem in the third Bodo Accord. Let's start with the problem now. I'll warn you beforehand. There will be multiple groups that will now be introduced one by one with multiple names. Don't worry, you don't have to remember all of them. Just remember the final one that signed the peace accord. The ones that are before that are not that important. Even if you forget them, don't worry. Think of it as a story rather than something that you need to remember. Okay, so now let's start. What is the problem and how the Bodo issue started? So now in 1980s, the Bodo politicians and the Bodos thought a lot of illegal migrants are coming in. A lot of Bengali speaking Muslims are coming into our Bodo area. We don't want them. So what happens? A force is created. A kind of a body is created. The body's name is Bodo Security Force. Don't confuse with BSF. That's they are the good guys. The BSF is the good guy. This is the BDSF. So Bodo Security Force. This is created. What do they do? Simple, no complication. See a Bengali Muslim, kill the Bengali Muslim, full stop. Don't worry, don't think too much. That is a simple objective. In the Bodo area, you see a non Bodo, kill them, full stop. Don't ask questions, don't tell anything. Kill them and come back. So, again, simple, pure, no worries, no complications. So, this is how the group was formed, the Bodo Security Force. Now, again, please understand there is a religious angle involved here, and we'll come to that. Please do remember, Bodos are Christians. How, as I told you, when the British came here, the British missionary, the Christian missionaries came here, trying to convert people into Christianity. They were most successful in northeast part of the country. So most of the Bodos that you had are Christians. Now what happens? 1993, the government tries to see if they can sign a Bodo Accord. So the first Bodo Accord is signed. As always, some people in the BDSF support this, some people are against to this. So a new group is formed. Those who support this, they are now peaceful. Those who are against it, they form a new group called NDFB. Don't confuse with NBFC. That's non-banking financial company. That's different. This is NDFB, National Democratic Front of Bodoland. So this BDSF now gets converted to NDFB. So they don't exist now. Again, what do they do? Simple. Go kill people who don't look like you. Go kill people who don't speak like you. Simple. As simple as that. If you find anyone in your villages, in your cities who don't speak like you, speak a separate language, kill them. Who don't look like you, don't follow the same religion, go and kill them. So this becomes NDFB, National Democratic Front of Bodoland. Don't worry, even if they are violent, they're at least democratic. So be happy about that. Okay? So that is that is their idea. NDFB, violent but democratic. Now again, I'll come to this photo in just a bit. So we leave this photo. I will come to this photo in just a bit. Let's not break the story. So now the story is when you fight and you start killing people over a long time, the other side will also do something, right? It's not that you can keep on killing people and keep hurting them. Other side will also do something. So the other side now made one more team. The second team in the competition, ladies and gentlemen, is BLTF, Border Liberation Tiger Force. So now we have two people in the competition. One, NDFB. Who is NDFB? They are, remember, democratic. Even though violent, they are democratic. So what do they do? They basically are Christians. And what do? They attack Bengali speaking Muslims. They attack Bengali speaking Muslims. This is what they do. This is what the introduction is. This is what they write in their CV. So the other group that is formed becomes BLTF, Bodo Liberation Tiger Force. Now, what do? They are the ones who are fighting against the NBFB. So, what do? They protect Bengalis. They protect the Bengalis, and because they are the good guys, at least they seem to be the good guys, Indian army also supports them. I'm just writing army. I hope you by default know it's the Indian army I'm talking about, not any other army. So Indian army supports them. These two groups fight a lot in 1996. There were a lot of clashes between the two. Many people were killed in these clashes. Anyways, let's go ahead. Then the Christian, by the way, I also, sorry, forgot to write, they are Hindus. They are Hindus. So again, two different people or two different groups that have come in. First, NDFB. What do? We kill. Who do we kill? People who don't speak like us, people who don't follow the same religion. Who are we? We are Christians. Then comes BLTF, that is Border Liberation Tiger Force. What do? We protect the Bengalis. Who are we supported by? The Indian Army. What religion do we follow? We mostly follow the Hindu religion. So now these two groups are the ones who are fighting now. Conflicts increase, and the government now introduces the second Bordeaux Accord. Second peace accord, what happened? The good guys signed the peace accord. Who is the good guy? Bordeaux Liberation Tiger Front. Border Liberation Tiger Force. Guys, I was fearing the day would come, and the day has come that someone has asked me what is BDSF. I was fearing something like this will happen. Despite me telling you multiple times, despite me underlining this also, despite me telling you they are the bad guys, see again this day has come. See this. I underlined this, man. Please, please, sir, don't do this to me. Okay? So this is the BDSF. Anyway, let's come ahead. So the second peace accord is signed. In the second peace accord, what happened? The good guys, that is the Border Liberation Tiger Front, they are the ones who signed the accord. They surrender. They say that, okay, we agree, Borderland Territorial Council is a good idea. Whatever you say, we agree. The government is happy with the happy guys. But the original bad group, they are still continuing. They are not over it. The original bad group, that is the NDFB, they are still continuing. They have not ended. Now they end in 2020. 2020, the government signs the third Bodo Accord, and this is when the bad guys come to the table and they sign the agreement. National Democratic Front of Bodoland signs the agreement. This is the third and the last Bodo Accord. The most important thing that happened with the Bodo Accord, the third one, is Bodoland Territorial Council was renamed to Bodoland Territorial Region. Bodoland Territorial Council was not just for Territorial Council now, it was now Bodoland Territorial Region. The difference is, and I'll just come back to this difference. The difference is that earlier there were only Bodoland districts that were included. Now nearby villages are also included. So the third Bodo Accord has agreed to the demands of the villagers also. Now, long story short, what do you have to remember? Let's first get to the idea. What do you have to remember? Because everything else is just time pass, right? So, what do you have to remember for the examination point of view? What you have to remember is the third Bodo Accord. First and second, the government will not ask, or sorry, UPSC will not ask. Old, that is gone now, not relevant. What's relevant right now is the third Bodo Accord. What we will be discussing right now is the provisions of the third Bodo Accord, what is written in that. Does it achieve the goal or not? Or are there some other things the government should be doing? So, again, for whatever I told you, the background story, there is a very, very, very little chance if the government will ask or the UPSC will ask the background story. They will not. They will mainly ask you the third Bodo Accord if they do. So do remember the third Bodo Accord and its provisions. But in order to understand it, it was important for you to understand the history of it as well. Okay. So whatever you are doing now, you have to pay attention. The third Bodo Accord. So what do they do? Third Bodo Accord basically is an accord where all these people came in, whoever was committing any violence, they agreed to it. Mainly, it was the National Democratic Front of Bodoland and some other small organizations that were protesting. They also came in. All Bodo Student Union, United Bodo People's Organization, all of them came in. And the third Bodo Accord was signed in 2020. Before we discuss this, give me just a minute of time. I'll just refill my water bottle. It's over. I'll be back in 1 minute. Don't go anywhere. Then we'll discuss the Bodo Accord. All right then. Only saying I was asking where was BDSF in between the war of. Only again I told you, beta. BDSF was renamed to NDFB. Remember, I told you. Once the first Bodo Accord was signed, the BDSF got renamed, the people were renamed to NBFB. That's what happened. Okay, I hope that is clear now. Now they don't exist, they have been renamed. Anyway, let's go ahead. So, as I told you before this, the most important for you to remember from the examination point of view is the third peace accord, because this is the latest one and it's not very old as well. Now, what exactly has been done in this peace accord? See, usually, whenever a peace accord is signed, please understand something, and this is true with almost every peace accord. Whenever a peace accord is signed, mostly it is only for one or two important things. Others are just add on here and there, sprinkle something at the top, some oregano at the top, and some chili flakes at the top. But it's actually about one or two main pointers. Others are just an add on without really much of a significance. For example, the demand here mainly was about to give more power to the Bodo areas. So basically, the main demand was accepted here. The main demand was accepted, that is here. 13th one. Center will expedite the process of granting scheduled tribe hill status to Bodos living in the hill areas. And now the Bodoland Territorial Area District will be increased. So the area of Bodoland Territorial Council will increase. That is the main demand. Others are just an add on. Happy that they were given, but they were not really the main point of demand. For example, I'll give you another a related example. Someone asked me about the status of the farmer protest, which I don't know. I'm not following that news. For example, farmers are demanding a lot of things. The main demand that they have is that the MSP should be given the legal status. Then the other demand here and there, this should be done, that should be done. But the main demand that's driving their movement forward is the legal status, the MSP. Similarly, here for the Bodos, the main demand is to give them more powers, give them more autonomy. The others are just an add on that you need to give us more power, more development funds. So, what is it that the government has agreed to? Please remember, if not all, try and remember some of them. Third Bodo Peace Accord, number one, National Swords University will be set up in this area. Central University will be named after Upendra Nath Brahma, who was the former president of All Bodo Student Union. Government will set up a railway coach factory to give more jobs. Sports Authority of India Center will be set up. Cancer hospital, medical colleges will be set up. Veterinary college will be set up, and AIMS will be set up, etc., etc. And there are a lot. You can read all of these. Are they all done? No, no, no. They are not all done. No government fulfills all these promises at one go. The governments make promises and then they try and gradually do that one by one. No government will be like, do this tomorrow. No. The government's aim is sign the agreement, get them to leave their weapon. That is it. Everything else will go, will come later on at a snail pace. You will become IS officers. You might also have to sign on the file that, sir, please create a Bodo Memorial Museum. So you will sign on the file as a secretary of the Cultural Ministry. You never know. You are reading it today, you will be implementing it tomorrow. That is the beauty of this. So all these things were promised by the government. But again, as I said, these were not the center demands, anyways. So as long as the main demand, this one is done, the other demands are just an add-on that the Bodos will get. The same thing here is written in point-wise stuff. The Bodo groups will suspend their operations. They will leave violence, surrender their weapons, disband their organizations. Under sixth schedule, a new model of power sharing is finalized. More powers from the Assam government are being given to the Bodoland territorial area, given more autonomy, given more chances to make their own kind of laws. It will also reduce financial dependence on the state government. They will be given more ways in which they can raise their own finances, put some taxes also on some people. expand their territory. As I said, Borderland Territorial Council earlier only had some districts. Now in the nearby areas, villages, etc., rural area also will be made a part of it. BTC is Borderland Territorial Council. They will have a say also in some appointments of this area. This is also very important. This is a power that no other territorial council has in the sixth schedule. Please remember. In the sixth schedule, no other district council, no other regional council has been given this power as the Bodoland has. That is, they will have a say. Means again, not binding, but they will be asked, they will be consulted. When it comes to appointment of deputy commissioners and superintendents of police in that area, again, they will not appoint them. Appointment will still be done by the state government, but at least they will be told, because what happened was the Bodos said that the police officers that come in our area, they use violence, they don't listen to us, they don't listen to our complaints. So the idea here is to assure them that don't worry, when the government appoints some police officers, they will ask you also for whatever your view is, and only then they will be appointed. Also, that Borderland Territorial Council will now be called Borderland Territorial Area District, with the villages also coming in. With this, the one important thing that has happened, anyone in this area that is a non-Bodo, they will be excluded from it. So villages that are non-Bodo populated will not be a part of it. Do remember this. Villages that are predominantly Bodo population, they will be included. But villages which do not have a lot of Bodo population, they will not be included in this. So they will still be under state government only. They will not be under this and the laws of the Borderland Territorial Council. Other interesting part, number of members have been increased. So number of members have been increased. With time, they will increase up to 60. Now, please remember the present status. The present status is 40 plus 6. 40 plus 6 is 40 are elected, there is election, and 6 are nominated by the governor. While the 6 will not change, this 40 will be increased to 60. This 40 will be increased to 60. The 6 will not change, that will be as it is. For comparison, tell me this, the other district councils in the sixth schedule, the 30 members that they have, out of those 30, are there some nominated by the governor as well, or they're all elected? The 30 members that you told me about other district councils, are they all elected or they're also nominated by governor, some of them? Good job, Rohit. Doiba, and how many, if yes? Okay. So in the other district councils, the distribution is 26 plus 4. So other district council, the usual ones in the sixth schedule, the distribution is 26 plus 4. So 4 are nominated by the governor there, and 26 are elected. In Borderland Territorial Council, it's 40 plus 6 for now. And with time, as per the board accord, the government is planning, or the government is promising to increase it. The 41 will go up to 60. The government also said that representative of the student union and territorial council will be in the committee, and there will also be a Bodo Kacheri Welfare Council set up for development of other Bodo villages outside this area. Means there's a Bodoland area, but apart from the Bodoland area, also in other parts of Assam, there are some villages where the Bodo population lives. What about them? For Bodoland area, you have made the Bodoland Territorial Council, the village district area, that is fine. But what about the villages that are in other parts of Assam that still have Bodo population? For them, there is a council that is created, Bodo Kachari Village Council, Welfare Council rather. They will focus on the villages outside this area. outside the borderline territorial area district, whatever the other villages are with border population, they will look into that. Other provisions, again, you don't have to remember all of them. Please don't think you have to remember all of them. Remember six or seven, that would be good enough. In the prelims, it would not be asked because it's an older news now. The prelim specific thing is usually when you see it's much more, I would say, that is current. On the other hand, in the mains, you might be a slightly older questions also. So in the mains, it's important. For the prelims, don't worry, not everything or not all the provision will be asked. So don't remember all of them. As long as you have six or seven main ones handy, that is good enough. These are the other ones. Government will give rehabilitation and jobs, etc., to 1,500 people, cadre of this group living in the hills. Those borders will also be called schedule hill type status, so they will be given reservation in the jobs mainly. Bodo language will be the associate official language for entire Assam. Criminal cases against their leaders will be withdrawn. However, one issue that has not been accepted by the government is this: the Bodos wanted that there should be a concept of citizenship. The Bodos wanted that people living in the borderland area, they should be given citizenship of this area, while others should be outsiders. But that has not been accepted. The government has said no, we cannot have citizenship specific thing. India has a single citizenship status. You only are citizens of the country, so this has not been accepted by the government. And then there are other again issues. You don't have to remember all of them. Government will give 1,500 crore rupees for aid package for development of these areas. Border movement, any people who were killed in this movement will get 5 lakh compensation. There will be new development, center, university. Again, the same things that I showed you in the photo in the infographic stuff. Now, what has happened ever since the accord has come in? 2020, the accord was signed. Since then, the good part is that we have not seen violence in the borderland area since then, which means most of the groups have come on board. There have not been any other factions that have gone out. Many of the demands have been accepted. Government has started giving funds also. Government has started the process of setting up these sports universities. Compensation has been given to people who were killed in that entire borderland agitation. Conflict has ended. There is much more peace in that area, which is again a good sign for the government of the center and at the state. The one other thing that has happened, see, there is always good and bad aspects. The good aspect again is that the government now sees peace in a certain area. The bad aspect is when you agree to so many demands, the others will say, I will also do the same thing. Because what the government has done, government has given a kind of a blueprint that if you do this, we will accept your demand. The government has kind of given an example for the others that if you do this much violence, if you kill these many people, I will accept your demand. That is always a very dangerous precedent. That when you accept demands, and on top of that, not just accepting demands, when you say, I will give money to the people of those families who were killed, I will take away the criminal cases as well. So when you set this kind of an example, that becomes a big challenge for the government going forward. How do you now tell the other nine councils in the sixth schedule that no, 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 these special provisions were only for Borderland? You are not that good. Other nine are just like that, but it is the Borderland Council that will get more power. Not just this, why now? How would you stop the protest in Ladakh? As you know, in Ladakh, for a long time, ever since Ladakh became a union territory, they have been demanding that they want inclusion in the sixth schedule of the constitution. They also want their own territorial council. They also want autonomy to be given to them, which the government is not accepting. So, how now do you reject those demands after accepting most of the demands of borderland? That becomes a big problem. Also, when you give so much powers to one single area, you are taking away powers from the state government as well. There are other areas where there are non-border population, Adivasis, other people, they also are now thinking that if we maybe have the same kind of protest If we form similar groups, if we engage in same kind of violence, then maybe the government will be forced to accept our demands as well. And that has set a very, very, very dangerous precedent. So far, at least, there has not been any big issue to come up from the other parts of Assam. But again, in the future, the government will have to be careful about that. That brings us to the end of Assam. Before I go ahead, if you have any questions, do let me know. Specific to what we studied, again, please ask relevant question. It would be better for all of us. Megha, no, you do not see internal security question the prelims examinations. Internal security is a purely mains based subject. Preetham, once I take the question, I'll give the break only. Don't worry. Sure, the Karbi insurgency is not that big of an issue. That's why we did not discuss it. Karbi is again a tribe. There are thousands of tribes in this area. Karbi is again a name of a tribe that is mostly in Assam and in Meghalaya. They have also been demanding their own autonomy. Any other question? Shubham, once we complete this module, I will show you practice. I will show you the last year questions, so don't worry. At the end of the module, I will show you the last year question as I have shown with other modules as well. What type of questions have been asked, what type of questions have come in, etc. Lakshya saying, are there any violation of laws nowadays in Assam? Lakshya, see, you can't say there is no violation of law anywhere. There will always be crime at any part of the country, any single day. So saying that, oh, is there crime in Assam now? There's obviously crime everywhere in the country. You can never think that once the peace accord is signed, there will be no crime or everyone will stay quiet. There will always be some people who will try to create nuisance. The government just has to look at the scale of it. If the larger scale violence, if the larger scale protest has been curtailed, that is the objective of the government. Sapna, yeah, the PPT would be enough, but you have to complement that with current affairs. If something new happened, you have to add to that. Otherwise, it will be enough. Aryan is saying, what is the way to unify the communities if there are so many tribes? Aryan, the question that the tribes ask is, why do you want to unify them? They have different cultures. A culture that exists for thousands of years, you cannot overnight tell them that now be friends. Okay, be like brothers now. Leave the gun. You be like brothers. You can't tell them. It's a culture that is going on for thousands of years. So it's not that easy. You can't unify them all friendly. You can just hope that they all live peacefully together. Um, Ankush is saying, you told that NBFB attacking only the Muslim Bengali, but also on the other side, you told they attack the people who are different from them in language and tradition. So, Ankush, that is what I meant. Their language is Bodo. The NDFB people, their language is Bodo. The religion is Christianity. That was a short form of me saying that they attack Bengali speaking Muslims because Bengali speaking Muslim will have Bengali language, so different, and religion is also different. Uh, Bhagya, no, as I said, internal security is the name of the subject. Internal security is not a part of prelims. Pavitra is saying now Assam got full freedom, what they want. Assam did not get full freedom. Beta, Assam is not demanding freedom. Assam is an integral part of India. Every state is an integral part of India. So don't use this phrase that they got independence, they got freedom. No, they got autonomy. Again, be very careful with the words that you are using. Don't use the word freedom, use the word autonomy. All these words matter a lot. Okay, so the tribes having in autonomy. Ankush Singh, that means they didn't attack Bengali Hindu migrants from Bangladesh. Ankush, there are hardly any Hindu migrants that came in here. Sapna, Bengali speaking Muslims came in mainly from Bangladesh. Okay, Aditya. Guys, Aditya has to go to the washroom quickly, so he's texting me in capital letters. Take a break right now. Okay, Aditya. We'll take the break right now. Go and come back at 7:25. I'll take your questions back then. Thank you. Hi everyone. Gunjan, focus more on the government efforts, government perspective. Preetham, it's a good book, but make sure you read current affairs also and add to that. Sangpoli, there is no count on how many promises have been fulfilled. It's an ongoing process. The government does not share data of how many promises have been fulfilled. The, for example, if you can file an RTI, file an RTI and get to know. All right then. Should we resume? Should we resume then? Only I'm not talking about any ebook. Preetham asked me, how is Ashok Kumar's book for internal security? I told him that is a good book. Should we resume? Okay then. So far, we have discussed about Nagaland and we have discussed about Assam. Now we'll go back to our discussion for the third state in the northeast part of the country, a state that is unfortunately a lot in the news from the past few months for a lot of wrong reasons, that is Manipur. Out of all the states in the northeast right now, the one that is in the midst of violence the most, the one that is a lot in the news because of the problem going on is Manipur. Although the mainstream media has stopped to cover what is happening in Manipur. But if you look at other newspapers, if you look at media of that region from the northeast part of the country, you will still see that the situation is still not under control in Manipur. Now, today, apart from discussing the history of Manipur, we'll also be discussing the present problem in Manipur. Why is it that it started? What is the problem going on? What are the different actors that are involved here? And what is the role of some other parties, including what is happening from Myanmar? So, if you look at Manipur, the interesting part about Manipur is when the British came here, it had its own identity. It was not a part of Assam when the British came here. It had its own kingdom, it had its own king. They were the Meitei kings. Now, if you look at Manipur, we'll discuss this later also, but especially from the news that you see, to understand Manipur, just understand a bit of this slightly. So, Manipur has two types of population. Unlike most of the other northeastern states, most northeastern states have a very large, overwhelming majority of tribal population like Mizoram, Nagaland, etc. Manipur is not like that. So Manipur has almost a 50-50 division. There is not a big difference, almost a 50-50 division. So in Manipur, there are two main sex groups that are seen. One are tribals and one are non-tribals. Non-tribals are called the Metis. Tribals are the Kukis and also some Nagas. Now, out of these, now it's not the first time that a problem has started in Manipur. If you look at Manipur and Manipur's history, Kukis are the ones that live in plains, plain living areas. Sorry, not this plain. Plain living areas. They are the ones who live in the hills. Now, apart from this, the other problem that exists is for most of Manipur's history. For most of Manipur's history, and I'm talking about pre-independence when the British came in, most of Manipur's history, they have always been ruled by a Meitei king. The king have usually been from the Meitei community. Now, right now, if you look at the division of population, it's not an overwhelming Meitei majority. So Meiteis, there are different estimates given because latest census was not conducted. So there are different estimates given, but usually people believe that if Meiteis are, let's say, about 53, 54%, then maybe the tribals would be remaining, let's say, 46, 47%. So there's not a lot of difference. You can't say the cookies will always be in power. because they are always in majority? No. Metis were not always in power because of a large majority. Just that historically, the Metis king have always acquired most of the area. The Metis kings have been richer. After India's independence, also, most of the chief ministers in Manipur have been from the Metis community only. Now, Manipur became a part of the British Empire after its merger with India, lost its autonomy, became a part of Assam 1949. It was in 1972 that, after a lot of demand, it was separated and it became a full fledged state. Now, when it became a full fledged state, the issues in Manipur did not end. Because again, Manipur's makeup, how Manipur is formed, is very different. It's a very, very diverse state. And that is one of the reasons why we have so much violence in Manipur right now. As I said, from the tribal side, we have the Nagas and the Kukis. These are tribals and they live in the hill areas. Metis are the ones that are non-tribals and they live in the plain areas. There is other interesting part. See, understand Manipur, how it is formed. Again, my drawing is extremely bad, so I'm not going to draw. But imagine it like this. Imagine like this bowl. So what happens is Manipur is surrounded by hills from all four sides. So for example, if this is the small area in between, there are hills on all the different sides. So what happens is in the middle, the plain area is very small. It is only in the small plain area where the Metis are. This plain area is small. Most part of Manipur is the hill area. Those are the bigger areas. So one of the problems that exists, the Metis community, which is larger in number, is living in smaller area, that is a plain area. The Kuki, the Nagas, that are smaller in number, are living in larger areas. And this is not just the end of it. There is also another problem. Since the government has always been extremely careful that the tribal community and their rights should not be compromised, that the tribal community culture should not be compromised. Since the government is extremely careful about that, what the government has done is the government has made sure that the cookies get a lot of benefits from their policies. For example, one policy of the government is cookies can buy any land in the state, or the tribals rather can buy any land in the state, but the Metis cannot buy hill land. So Metis only have the plain area. They only can buy that area, any property in that area. They cannot buy any hilly area property. While the Kukis and the Nagas are free to buy any property in the state, including the plain area and the hilly area as well. So these kind of policies have led to some of the troubles even earlier as well. This is not the first time that this trouble between the Kuki and the Methi have started. The trouble has started earlier as well. Now, the Kukis and the Nagas, they are among the 29 scheduled tribes that have been recognized by the government. They get reservation also, with the Metis do not. As I said, the Metis and the Kukis are allowed to buy any land anywhere in Manipur. On the other hand, the Metis are not allowed to buy any hilly area land. So there is a lot of frustration amongst the Metis community. And that is why there have been other protests earlier. Now, the recent protests or the recent issue that has been going on, I hope all of you have read about this. I hope all of you know how this problem started. In case you do not know what happened in Manipur, how it started, I'll just give you a very brief idea about how the problem started in Manipur. So, the problem started in Manipur a few months back. The problem again is, please understand this, the fight mainly is between, or the issue is between two big communities, Metis and Nagas. So, people from the Metis community went to the state high court. Their demand was that we should also be given the scheduled tribe status. That is their demand. So they went to the state high court saying that we should also be given the scheduled tribe status. Now, this is not the first time they have done this. Earlier also they tried to do this, it was rejected. Now again they tried to argue, they went to the state high court saying that we are also backward, we also want reservation. Why only cookies are getting reservation? We also want the scheduled tribe status. Now, you all have read in Indian polity who has the right to give a scheduled tribe status? The right is with the parliament. It is the parliament that will take up the matter. So the central government basically. The central government will take up the matter. So the state government does not have this power. Now the interesting part is what the state high court did. The state high court did not say that we are giving you scheduled tribe status. They gave the central government an order to please look into it. Only this much. Look into the demand. The state high court asked the central government to look into the demand of the Metis. What are they demanding? The Metis are demanding we also want to be scheduled tribe. Why? Because of reservation benefits. Please understand, Metis are not from the tribal community. They have not been really backward in the state. They have always had most of the power in the state. But in these times, the times that we are living in very funny times. Earlier, we used to live in a time where everyone wanted to say, see, I'm very powerful. Everyone wanted to project himself or herself as very powerful. These are earlier times. In today's time, everyone wants to say, see, I'm very backward. I'm very backward. I only have one Fortuner, not three. I only have one Audi. Although I wanted to buy five, I only have one Audi. I'm very backward. Please give me reservation. So now it's very funny. It's like comparing, like, remember used to come out after giving the paper, someone used to ask us how was the paper, your reaction is not that great, not, and you end up topping the exam, that's a different matter altogether, but your reaction always is not that great, the paper was very bad, I could not score any good marks, and again the result would be that you will be at the top. Similar is what is happening with reservation thing. The fight is to show that I am backward. There was a time when you wanted to flaunt, and it's very interesting when you today, even when you go out to party, you want to flaunt, you want to buy the best watch, the best clothes, the best car, and when the same person goes out on the road, he's like, I'm very backward, man. I want reservation. Anyways, I'm not saying the Metis are the same, or see, every community has all types of people. Every community has richer people, every community has poor people, but again, generally, Metis basically what they did was they started demanding that we want the scheduled tribe status, and the scheduled tribe status, the Manipur High Court said we will ask the central government to look into it. Again, the central government did, or the Manipur High Court did not demand from the central government, please remember, they did not demand, they just asked them, can you please look into it? That was enough for the Kuki community to start the protest. That was enough for the Kuki community to start the protest, where the Kuki community said that no, we cannot share our reservation benefits. Because, see, the entire idea is reservation is only effective only if it is given to a few people. If you have a situation where you give reservation to everyone, that means reservation to no one. I hope you're able to understand this point. Reservation to everyone means reservation to no one. Reservation or all these kind of policies where you prefer a certain group of people, they're only effective if they're given to some people, a few handful of people. If you give them to a lot of people, the impact reservation anyways goes down. So this was the spark of this protest. The Kuki community, basically, this is how they launched the protest. And it became extremely violent, with the Kuki community looting the police stations, getting the weapons from the police, attacking the Metis. The Metis again then protesting, and then Metis also giving them the same treatment. This is how it all started. It has become such a big issue. Hundreds of people have been killed. The law and order is still not under control. The police has been looted. Police is not able to protect themselves, let alone protecting the common people. Now, over here, there's one other angle attached to it. The one other angle that many people talk about is the role of Myanmar. The role of Myanmar. Now, Myanmar has a very interesting role to play with respect to India. Myanmar shares its border with multiple Indian states, including Nagaland, including Manipur. So now there are allegations, and if you look at the border with for example, if this is the border, and this is Nagaland, this is Manipur. So what happens is across the border there are families that are living. So there are Naga families where family members of the Nagas are on Manipur side also and on Indian side also. Similarly with Kukis also live across the border as well and live here as well. So there are family ties. There are basically family relations on both the sides. So what happens is if something wrong happens to the Kuki community in Myanmar, Indian Kuki community comes to give them support. And if something wrong happens to the Kuki side in India, the Kukis from Myanmar are also open to give them support. So when this problem of Kuki versus the Metis started last year, it is said that a lot of Kukis from Myanmar started entering Manipur. They started entering Manipur, and that basically increased the problem even more. Because when you have a situation where outsiders are coming in large numbers, it creates a disbalance. And that becomes a problem. Now, there is one more view here. The other side of the story is the Metis community mainly says this. The Metis community says that even earlier, a lot of Kukis used to come from Myanmar to our side. And what do they do? The allegation is that the Kukis from Myanmar, when they come to our side, in the hilly areas, in the hills, they plant illegal drugs, opium, etc. Illegal drug cultivation starts. Like opium, etc., is grown here. Last year, in the beginning of last year, the chief minister of Manipur had given strict orders to destroy all the illegal drug cultivation in Manipur hills. So this drug cultivation happens in the hilly areas only, not in the plain areas. So the CM had given strict orders to destroy all the drug cultivation in Manipur. The CM, by the way, chief minister, is from the Metis community. That also adds to the problem. The CM is from the Metis community. He gave the order to destroy drugs and drug cultivation. When he gave the order to destroy drug cultivation, it is seen that the Kuki community may be angry with the CM for that reason as well. Because the Kuki community, a lot of whom were indulging in this illegal drug cultivation, and that cultivation was destroyed by the chief minister and his policies, it is also the reason why the government thinks, or many Metis mainly believe, that they are protesting against the Metis community. I will quickly recap what we studied. Manipur has two kinds of people, tribal and non tribal. Non tribal are the Metis. They usually hold the power. They live in the plains. They usually have the chief minister post. Earlier, they were the ones who used to be the king. They are not scheduled tribes and they don't have the permission to buy land in the hilly areas. In the hills, we have the tribals. Tribals are the Kukis and the Nagas mainly. Both of them are tribals, both of them are in the scheduled tribe community. They can buy land anywhere. The problem is between the Metis and the Kukis. Kukis have scheduled tribe status, Metis do not. Metis also want scheduled tribe status. So first, Metis went to Manipur High Court. Manipur High Court asked the central government to look into this. Just this much. Just Manipur High Court asking the central government to look into it was a big red flag for the Kuki community. Just by this one, they started to protest, they started to attack the Methi community that no, we will not allow this to happen. We will not allow the Methi community to become a scheduled tribe. That was the starting point of this protest. However, there is one more angle to it. One more angle is of Myanmar. Across the border from Myanmar, there are a lot of Nagas and Kukis that live. Their family members live on the Indian side. For the tribals, nationality comes second. Their tribes always come first. So for a Kuki, being an Indian or being from Myanmar would come second, but helping the fellow Kuki tribal would come first. So what has happened is in the past as well, whenever Kukis are in trouble in Myanmar, Indian Kukis go and help them out. Whenever Kukis are in trouble in India, from Myanmar, they come and help them out coming here. Now, this is where the problem is because what has happened is that there has been a lot of movement from the Kukis towards Manipur from Myanmar. They have come in large numbers earlier as well. Now the allegation are that they have come in and they plant illegal drugs in the hilly areas. The chief minister took strict action against that. Chief minister is also from the Methi community. He took action against that. And that also became a Methi versus Kuki issue, where the Kuki tribals were not happy that you are attacking and you are cutting our cultivation, and the Kuki started demanding. So, again, these are different angles here. Now, one more thing about Myanmar. Now, how is it that tribals can come in from Myanmar so easily? If you look at the role of Myanmar, India realizes the fact, and we discussed this earlier, Myanmar is extremely important for us for our foreign policy. The one other part about Myanmar is that both the sides, India and Myanmar, have realized that the tribal community lives on both sides of the border. So there are a lot of tribals in India that have family in Myanmar. From Myanmar also, there are a lot of tribals that live in India. So the two sides, Myanmar and India, in 2018 agreed to a new agreement called the Free Movement Regime. In 2018, a Free Movement Regime agreement was signed. The idea was simple. The idea was the tribal community whose family members live on the other side. The tribal community whose family members live on the other side, they have the right to cross the border and go up to 16 kilometers without a visa. So if there is a, let's say, Kuki tribal in Myanmar, that tribal can cross the border, come to India, and travel up to 16 kilometers from the border without any document, without any visa. Similarly, from the Indian side, they can do the same. Now, the problem is it has been misused now. The government recently, just a few days back, the government recently said that we will close it now. Recently, Indian government said that we are closing this. Because the Indian government believed that this was being misused. How? Again, a lot of cookies from Myanmar were coming into Manipur and they were indulging in this illegal drug cultivation that became a bigger problem in Manipur, and that led to this law and order issue becoming even bigger. Now, this is the problem. Priyadarshini is saying, why do they cultivate drugs? What is the link? See, the idea is simple. Why would anyone cultivate drug? It's not that cultivating drug is a habit. The idea is, if you don't have any other employment opportunity, then what would you do? That's a simple idea. If you don't have education, if you don't have other employment opportunities, and you think you can grow something which can be sold in large numbers or big money, why would you not do that? That is the idea. So no one basically goes into drug as a hobby. Cultivating drug is a lucrative exercise. It's a lucrative thing. You sell it in the market illegally. It's sold at a higher price. So that is the reason. It's not that they basically go and sell. Shweta is saying, where do they sell drugs? Trust me, Shweta, wherever there is a drug, people are ready to buy. So you don't have to go to buyers. People come in to buy drugs from far off places. If I knew that, I would be in the CBI. So don't ask me where the people come from. But yes, trust me, illegal things are sold in large numbers anywhere in the country. Even the bigger cities, see, drugs are banned in India, but in almost every single city, you will find people being able to buy drugs. You will find people being able to sell drugs in large numbers. And I'll tell you something very interesting. I'll tell you something very interesting. Police also does not want this drug selling and drug buying to end. Please understand. Police also does not do this or drug selling or drug buying to end. Why? Because do you know, when and if the police actually catches someone buying or selling the drug, that is the most lucrative thing for them. Do you know? Don't ask me how I know this. I'm not involved in any drug, but I know people who have been involved in this. So I know people, if you get caught by the police, even if you have 1 gram of something that is illegal, the police will ask you for a bribe of 1 lakh to 2 lakh rupees. You know that. It's not about 100 rupee or 500 rupee or 2000 rupee. If you're caught with a drug, even 1 gram or 2 gram of something, the bribe that they will ask for is in lakhs. It's not even in thousands, it's in lakhs. So police also internally would not really want the drug trade to end, because when you end the drug trade, you are taking away their earning opportunity. So for them, it's an earning opportunity. It's a catch. If they find someone, they get a good bonus of a month or so, much more than their salary. So again, that is a issue. Let's not go into detail of how the drugs are sold and bought. This is not something that will come to our knowledge or that will be asked here. But for those who are asking, how do I know? Guys, when you grow older, you have many friends, and when you have many friends, you get to know many things. That should be good enough answer for all of you. How I know this? Trust me, you will also get to know this when you make friends with other people. Anyways, let's come back. So, the insurgency problem, as I said, in Manipur is not new. It's an old problem. It's a problem that has existed earlier as well. Now, if you look at Manipur, the other demand is, just because Manipur has been created does not really mean that the demand for a new state has ended. Within Manipur also there are demands. For example, within Manipur also there are two things that have started. One, there's a demand for Kuki land. In fact, in this ongoing problem in Manipur right now, the Kuki versus the Methi protest, or this violence that is going on in Manipur right now for many months, now also the Kukis are demanding the same, that we want our own separate state called Kuki land. And then the problem of Nagalim exists here, because remember the map that I showed? I'll just take you back very quickly. Where's the map? Wait. Yeah, this is the map. So if you see this map again, what does Naga want? Or they want the entire Manipur to be a part of Nagalim, this entire Manipur. So the problem is that Nagas want the entire Manipur to come and be a part of Nagalim. So Nagas want their territory to be exerted here as well. Kukis want that their area or some part of their area should be given to them as the Kuki land. So internally amongst the tribal population also there is fight, that who will take this area. And this is a very small state. For such a small state to have so many demands, that again is a big problem for the government. Manipur, as I said, shares border with Nagaland. Mizoram, and again, because of different cultural identities, these problems exist. One other problem or misunderstanding that people usually have, when you say tribals, please understand the word tribals. And when you say, oh, tribal community lives here, tribal community lives here, tribal community does not mean only one single group with all the customs and rituals the same. That is not true. Amongst a tribal community also, there is such a large group. Amongst one state or in one state, there can be hundreds of tribals with different cultures, with different identities. So just to say, oh, you are tribal, you have this culture. No, among the tribals also there are so many different cultures that exist. And that is a big problem for the government. How many of them can the government give them as a state? For how many of them can the government say, okay, we'll give you this state, we'll give you that state? If you keep on making new state for all the tribal community, there will not be any end to it. The Metis want the state to stay intact, just like Manipur as it is. Kukis want their Kuki land, Nagas want something else, that the Nagalim would be created. So it's a very hodgepodge of a problem. It's a very big issue that has actually come up, and it's an old issue in Manipur. We discuss about the land struggle between the Kukis and the Nagas as well. The two tribals are not the same. Just because both of them are tribals doesn't mean that they will be the same. Nagas have a different culture, they want something entirely different. Kukis have a different culture, they want something entirely different. In 1990s, especially 1992-97, there were large scale ethnic violence in the state, violence between Nagas and the Kukis also, and violence between Kukis and the Metis also. So there's this big complicated issue going on. In between this, there were some groups also that were formed. In Manipur, the big group by the Metis was United National Liberation Front. Now, this was a group before Manipur became a state. Remember, before Manipur became a state. Once Manipur, because Metis were demanding that the state should be created. Once Manipur was created as an independent state, 1972, their movement mostly ended. Now the Metis are not really demanding much except the scheduled tribe status. The demand mainly from the Nagalim side, where the NSC and IM has been demanding. Now that has also ended with the peace accord now. As we discussed, their peace accord has been signed. It is the other NSCM group, the Khaplang group, and the KK group. They are the ones who are demanding something now. Also, do remember, Manipur has inner line permit. I discussed about this yesterday. Remember, Manipur has inner line permit, like Nagaland, like Arunachal Pradesh. They have inner line permit. I hope you were in the class yesterday and awake. Everyone listened to when we were discussing a line permit, right? Okay. So in case you had slept off, dozed off, in a line permit yesterday we had discussed, it's a permission that you require to enter the state. So it's easy. You just apply for it online. For example, if you just Google Manipur airline permit, you will get the government link. There are different types of permits given. For usually the tourist one that you get is for 30 days, 30. So you get this permit for 30 days, you can be in the state. For journalists, etc., it's a longer permit that is given to you, etc. So again, this permit is in states to make sure that they can keep a track of how many outsiders are coming in, when are they going out. This is usually done in the tribal states, and we discussed about this yesterday as well. Other group in Manipur that is mainly led by the tribals is called the People's Liberation Army of Manipur, that is a PLA. This PLA group has been the one that has been conducting violence. They are the ones that are mainly led by the Kukis, the tribals. Manipur also has come under AFSPA, as we discussed the AFSPA law earlier. It remains in force even right now. The Nagas keep on bringing up their issues. They created a blockade also. Blockade of Manipur basically was a situation where they basically blocked certain highways, and the stuff, the import or any commodity could not come into the state of Manipur. That is also something that has happened. Now, from Manipur, again, questions can be asked. It's not that question cannot be asked. In fact, this is one state that is the most in the news from where the questions can be asked. What do you have to focus on? You have to focus on the issue that we discussed of Metis versus the Kukis, the role of Myanmar here, the family ties that they have with the tribal community, with the Kukis and the Nagas, their role. Also, how has the government been trying to control this? This is where the question can be asked. It is still an unresolved problem. So the question will not be about how the government solved the problem. This is still an unresolved issue so far. One very interesting thing that is seen here is how politics plays. After all this violence, hundreds of people dying, even in fact, some people estimate thousands of people dying so far in the ongoing protest. Even then, the state government has not been removed, president rule has not been imposed, which is very, 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 very odd. In India's history, for much, much lesser, we have seen president rule being imposed. For very little reasons, president rule has been imposed. And even without violence, president rule has been imposed in multiple states. But in this case, president rule has not been imposed. The reason is simple. It is a BJP government in the state, it is a BJP government in the center. Because you will not see the center government imposing president rule in that state which is ruled by their own party. So it is not the party, that it's basically the same party from the center and the state, and that is why the problem actually exists, and that is why there is no president rule even in Manipur. Even after all this protest, the chief minister still continues to be the chief minister. All right then. Before we go ahead to the next state, any questions? Please let me know relevant questions before we go ahead. Aditya, not mine. Shweta is saying recently Telangana police caught two Andhra Pradesh police smuggling ganja. Shweta, no comments. I don't want to be involved in police. All police is the best. Police is the savior of the people. Go police. Telangana also, Andhra Pradesh also, no comments. Any other questions that you might have? In the last class that we were doing when we were discussing this topic, someone asked me a question. So, difference between ganja and heroin and opium. So, if you are also planning to ask that, I don't know. I have no idea. So, if that is in your mind, please remove it from your mind. I have no idea. Shweta, you are from Andhra Pradesh proudly. So, who caught? Andhra Pradesh officers were caught. Oh, in this case, Telangana won, right? They caught the officer. So I think the Telangana people won in this side, in this case, not the Andhra people, because see, your policemen were caught. Okay, one question. Sebam saying, which states are important? Guys, this it's not important. Important is a very different thing. Important is very different. Please don't write important. Okay, it's important. I know it may be your keyboard, but please don't. Important is a very different one. The question is which states are important in the exam? Manipur, as I said, a lot in the news. Nagaland, always important, and Assam because of Ulfa. These are the three important. Then Ankush saying people nowadays frightened to approach the police if they see Sandesh Khali incidents. Ankush, see, I'll be honest, there has never been a time in India's history where people were comfortable with the police. So to say, oh, now people are not comfortable with the police, people were never comfortable with it. People were never like, oh, let's go to police station, man, let's have some fun. No, people have never ever been comfortable with the police. So that's a wrong assumption. So that imperfection or kind of issue with the police communication that still remains. Then I have a question from Parveen. Inner line permit is it about license? Parveen, as I said, inner line permit is a kind of an permission that you require to enter certain states in the northeast part of the country. Arunachal, Manipur, Nagaland. You have to apply online before you visit. Even as a tourist, you first have to get that certificate and then only you can enter. Namita, just like a different. Namita is saying just a bit of difference, just like different coffees. Namita, are you talking about difference between heroin and ganja? Because I have no idea. If that is a difference, then so be it. You are an expert. I am not. No idea. Don't want to pass on this information also. Lakshay is saying environmental chemistry last chapter. These drugs are given. Guys, don't tell everyone where these drugs and those things are given. Okay, if you have the knowledge, great. Keep it with yourself. Nothing to display. Shilata is saying fencing is building between India and Myanmar. Yes, Shilata. So the government, when they announced that we are taking back the free movement regime between India and Myanmar, that is, we are ending the 16-kilometer rule. They also said that we will be building fence between the border. So fence between the border is not a thing that happens between all the countries. Like India has fencing at the Bangladesh border and at Pakistan border. Nepal border we have no fencing. Bhutan border we have no fencing. Uh, Myanmar now we will be having fencing to control people coming in illegally. Then Garima is saying, after all these, why did cookies cultivate drug? How could that be the way of opposing the Metis? No, no, Garima. Cultivating drug is not the way of opposing the Metis. It's a way to earn money. But when the Metis try to destroy that, that is when they protest that. So cultivating drug is not like Gandhiji's Satyagraha that I'm sitting on Satyagraha and I will cultivate drug now against my oppressor. No, no, no. That is not what happens. Cultivating drug is just for their own livelihood. Ankush saying British fooled by yeah. Ankush, I read your comment. Opium story, opium wars, etc. Uh, Lakshay saying, is there BSF army between Manipur and Myanmar also? Lakshay, good question. This is your homework. We will discuss this in the last class. Is the BSF present at India-Myanmar border or not? Every border has different type of forces. BSF, tell me where it is. You can find it out. India-Myanmar has a different force, not BSF. Gunjan is saying Methi have only 10% land where they could buy land in Manipur. Isn't it bad? While tribes have 90%. Gunjanji, there is nothing called good and bad in laws. Laws are either legal or illegal. So take out this definition. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? That does not really matter. Is it legal or not? That's what matters right now. Karthikeyan is saying, where are they selling drugs? Karthikeyan, I don't know. Even if I knew, I will not tell you because tomorrow you will not be in the class, you will be there. So, no. See, drugs are sold illegally to people who want them. Simple. Let's just end it there. People who want drug can approach them. Simple. Okay. Shweta is saying, is Methis Shweta, I can't even read your comment. I don't know what you're trying to ask. Okay, one or two more questions and we'll go ahead. Uh, Sapna is saying, why not center take any action? Sapna, it's not that center is not taking any action. It's not that center is not taking any action. Center government is taking things. These things take time, and not every action of the government is reported in the news. The government is doing something at the back end, but it's not that it's coming in the news. Shweta is asking, is okay? I think the question is, are the Methis also cultivating drug? See again, you can't say no Methi will be cultivating trust. There can always be one or two people, but generally the senses of hilly areas are where the drug cultivation happens. If they employ one or two Methis, I can't say that they're not employing anyone. Okay, let's go ahead then. Lot of very diverse questions from drug peddling to where the drugs sold to important people. So a lot of things have been asked. Let's come back. Okay. Shweta, I don't differentiate. Why would I differentiate? Shweta is saying there are two Shwetas in the class. How do you differentiate? Why would I differentiate? Shweta is a Shweta. UPSC will differentiate with your roll number. Don't worry. Okay. One last question from Sheelata. In Manipur issue, is it purely based on community status? Which one is upper caste? Uh, Mostly the issue that started right now is this. The recent issue, the recent violence in Manipur is because of this scheduled tribe thingy, where the Metis want the scheduled tribe status, Kukis don't want them to get scheduled tribe status. This is the present status. There are other issues that have already also happened in the past. Kukis wanting their own state, etc. That is a past thing. But again, The present issue started with the scheduled tribe thing. Okay, then let's go ahead then. The next state that we will be discussing is Mizoram. Now, there are two ways to look at Mizoram right now. First way to look at Mizoram is number one, it's actually a success story. Success story in the sense that now, if you look at the state of Mizoram, it is mostly peaceful. Mostly, we do not see many issues in Mizoram, but the past has been bad. Extremely bad, in fact, not just bad, extremely bad. It has seen wide scale violence. The violence became so much in Mizoram that Indian Air Force had to drop bombs in Mizoram. It is the only example in India's history of Indian Air Force dropping bombs within our own country because the situation had become so bad that they had to do that. There was no other option. The tribal groves, the violence was so much in the forest areas, and the armed forces could just not go on land that they had to use the air force. This is the only example of Indian Air Force using bombs and using violence against its own people. However, all that has gone now. It's a pretty peaceful state. Now, if you look at Mizoram, Mizoram, very small state, so small that it used to be a district of Assam. So it again was a part of Assam. It is only 1987 that the state was formed. Now, to understand the story of Mizoram, there's a very interesting phenomena that you must understand. There's a phenomena called Motam. Now, what exactly is Motam? Let's try and understand this. So, see, there are some things in nature that you just can't beat. Nature will always beat the human because it is just nature. So, what is Motam? Motam is a phenomena which happens once in 48 to 50 years. So, what happens is once in 48 to 50 years, there is a bamboo flower that basically comes up in Mizoram or in that part. So, there are bamboo flowers whose life cycle is 48 to 50 years. So, after 48 to 50 years, these flowers bloom. Now, what happens is whenever these flowers bloom, they attract a lot of rats. And not just a few rats, thousands and lakhs of rats are attracted to eat that. When these rats are attracted by that bamboo flower, they then also read, they then also eat the cultivation. That is, they eat the crops. Now, what happens is when these crops are destroyed, that means people don't have enough food to eat. That leads to famine and thousands of people die. This entire phenomena is called Motam. This entire phenomena is called Motam. Again, it happens once in 48, 50, 55 years. It starts with the bamboo flower blooming. When these bamboo flowers bloom, they attract a lot of rats. They have this peculiar smell that attract a lot of rats. When the rats come in, once they feed on the bamboo flower, they also feed on the crops. Once the crops are eaten, and they are in such large numbers, thousands and lakhs of rats, there's such large numbers that when they destroy the crops, there is not enough crops left for the common people, and that is when famine strikes and people start to die. So now this is something that has happened in the past. The problem is when it last happened, let's say in 1959, when it last happened, and it used to happen where there were Mizo districts that are a part of Mizoram now, they're a part of Assam earlier. It used to happen in these areas, and the Mizos think, they believe that the government of Assam and the center government, both of them ignored them. They thought that the people from the Mizo tribes were given stepmotherly treatment. They were not given any relief. Their people were dying, their kids were dying, they did not have enough food to eat, and the government did not do anything about them. There were no relief measures taken, number one. And secondly, there are other demands that Mizo have been making for a long time. For example, demand of their language being recognized in Assam. That is the trigger point of it. That stepmotherly treatment, whenever we have famine, we don't have anything to eat, you don't even come to help us. Other factor, as I said, demand for Mizo language to be made the official language. Tell me this, when we are discussing this, when people demand that I want my language to become the official language, tell me what is the benefit that a common person gets? Benefit as a common man, what would I get? If it becomes the official language, then what happens? What do you think? Ankush, exams essay, that is an eighth schedule, beta. That's an eighth schedule. If it becomes official language of a state, then what happens? Exams, your medium of communication, that is when it happen when it becomes the part of eighth schedule, fine. But what if it is recognized at the state level? Pavitra, easy to communicate. You can still communicate. Who is stopping you to communicate in that language? Just because it's an official language, you can't stop communicating or start communicating now, right? Okay, Devyani. Okay, I'll tell you what happened. Basically, what happens is, so what happens usually, what is the concept of a state language? The concept of a state language usually is that the government, Sapna, again, that's why I'm asking you, benefits for a common man. In legislature, the common man will not go and speak, right? So basically, what happens? The government adds notification for jobs that then starts to get in this language. So, for example, if let's say Assamese is the official language of Assam, then it means all the ads that the Assam government has to publish, all the job notification that the Assam government has to publish, and some government jobs also that require their state language. So there are some government jobs that require the language of the state. For example, if you appear for, let's say, Odisha PCS exam, in the Odisha PCS exam, you have to have a compulsory Odia paper. Without in Odia paper, without for passing that, you cannot get that. Yes, Pavitra. Same as in every other state. Punjab will have the Punjabi language exam. Andhra Pradesh will have the Telugu exam. Telangana also will have the Telugu exam. Tamil Nadu will have the Tamil exam. So again, if your language is not the official language of the state, that means that language will not be ours or that language will not be checked. Some other language will be checked. That becomes a problem. So if your language becomes your official language, that means you can pass exam in that language and be eligible for more government jobs. So for the common people, this is the benefit. That is why you see across the entire country there are multiple demands of our language be given the status of the official language, our language be given the status, because that will make it easier for them to get jobs, understand government ads, notifications, etc. Now, this demand was not accepted, and thus the Mizos made a group called the Mizo National Front. Again, as I said, two big issues. First big issue, the Motam thing, the famine relief was not great. Mizos had to make their own group because government was not helping them. Mizos had to start helping themselves. On the other hand, we saw the demand of the language also not being accepted. And that is why the demand was made that we want a separate state out of Assam. Now, please understand, the demand for Mizos was never to make a separate country. Nagaland, the Nagalim demand is to separate from India. From Mizo, the demand was never to make a separate country. It was only to have a separate state that will be Christian state for the Mizos. Shweta, thanks for reminding. You have a webinar. I'll leave a bit early. Don't worry. Don't worry. Now, this again, Mizoram issue became very big, very, very bloody in 1960s, 1970s. Their leader, the most famous leader that they had, was Lal Denga. Now, just like Fizo, that was the biggest leader of Nagaland, Lal Denga was the biggest leader of this movement. Now, example of Lal Denga is extremely interesting. Why? I told you earlier, whenever the government negotiates with the insurgent groups, the government tries to push them to come out in the open, fight elections, and do whatever you want then. Lal Denga is a prime example of that. He was a proper insurgent, used to shoot weapons. He, in fact, visited East Pakistan also to get support from Pakistan. He gave hardware training to people. He later on signed the agreement with the government, fought elections, and do you know he even became the chief minister of Mizoram? He even became the chief minister of Mizoram. So this is again an example, a successful example rather, of government convincing the leader, the insurgent leader, to come out in the open and to then make sure that they fight elections, they take part in politics, and then they properly make laws. The government had to fight very, very hard in Mizoram. The armed forces were given their power under the UFSPA to bring the situation under control. Because the Mizos were well trained, they had a lot of weapons from East Pakistan given to them. The Indian armed forces had to be deployed, Indian Air Force had to be deployed, as I told you. The only example of Indian Air Force striking its own territory. It has never ever happened. The reason is the situation became so bad that there was just no other option for the government to go ahead. And the forest, again, tribal forests and forests in these areas are so dense, it's almost impossible to go there buy food and then try to control this situation. Now, again, this problem was resolved in the 1980s when the Mizoram became a separate state altogether. But again, Mizoram in the past has had a very, very, very bloody history. As I said earlier, Mizoram 1986 came into being. Mizo's Accord was signed. Sorry, 1987 rather came into being. Mizo Accord was signed, and that is how Mizoram and its violence ended. They became a separate state. As well became the capital. And since then, we usually do not have a problem in Mizoram as such. The government of India was able to surrender what it would get to surrender from most of the members of the Mizo National Front, and most of them were rehabilitated by the government. This is where we will end today. As I said, the Mizo success story, 1987, statehood was granted, and there was also the Mizo Peace Accord that has lived up to the expectations even today. We will start from Tripura tomorrow. I'm giving you some time. If you want to leave early for your webinar, you have a few minutes. You can if you want to. If you have some question, you can still ask. Shubham, no. Shubham, Bihar has an official language, Hindi, man. Bihar has an official language, Hindi. Every state has some official language or the other. Bye, Namrata. Good night. We'll start from here tomorrow. Again, I'm resuming slightly, ending slightly early because I know you have a webinar today. You are welcome, Priyadarshini. Ankush, it might be late for a day or two. I'll check that. Shweta, as I said earlier, once the chapter ends, I will show you all the previous year questions from the past 5 years so you can get to know. Don't worry. I will tell you what kind of question will be asked. Let's complete it tomorrow and then I'll tell you what were the questions asked and how to write those questions. So don't worry. You're welcome. Okay, Shweta, noted. Pavitra, Telugu language will not be taught here. It will not be taught in this course. All right, then, guys. So I'll take your leave. You still have 5 minutes. You can refresh yourself and then join back for the webinar. If you have some question, the SME is still here to answer your questions. I'll see you tomorrow. Don't be late. join back at 5 p.m., where we will start and resume this journey. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Have a good night. Jai Hind.